The Bearcat Basketball Podcast is now presented by the Healthcare Management Group. Shout out to everyone at HCMG, and thank you for the support. Welcome back to another episode of the Bearcat Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Meacham, former UC Bearcat basketball player from 1997 to 1999 under the legendary coach, Bob Huggins, and I was fortunate enough to wear the iconic Jordan brand unis during my time. Now, you can follow me on social media. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Alex_Meacham. Meacham spelled M-E-A-C-H-A-M. I'm also on Facebook and LinkedIn, Alex Meacham. I'm on Snapchat at BigMeach41. And thanks to my producer, Stu, I'm now on TikTok at Alex Meacham41. Now, this is episode 81, and we're going to call this the State of UC Basketball. Now, here's what we're going to cover this episode. We're going to review the 2020-2021 Bearcat basketball season in detail. We're going to discuss the opt-outs and opt-ins during the season. We will dive into the players that have jumped into the transfer portal, the fans' reaction to what's going on. We're going to talk about Coach Brannon and what does all this mean for the future of UC basketball. Now, I couldn't cover all this without some special guests and some experts. So, I'm going to start with my first guest. This former player was part of one of the most successful and popular teams in Bearcat history, color commentator for the Bearcat basketball team, and as always, I call him the triple OG of the Bearcat basketball program. And if you could find, in my opinion, if you could find one player to truly represent a basketball program, Terry Nelson represents Cincinnati Bearcat basketball, plain and simple. My guy's here, number 33, Terry Nelson. Thanks for being here, T.
Insert the clap track here. That's what I'm talking about. Yes.
Stu's got that.
We got DJ Stu gonna put this clap track on this.
He's got the A track.
Yeah.
From Long Beach.
Appreciate being here, brother. Thanks for having us, man.
No problem. Speak really quickly. Hugs just won his 900th game, and obviously we started the podcast a little bit late because we watched Huggins play against Syracuse and lost. But can you speak on Hugs winning 900 games and just kind of what Hugs meant to you?
That's a lot. It's a lot of lives he's affected. You know, Hugs is the coolest white cat I've known my entire life. I grew up in Long Beach, California. We had gangs, and I got in trouble for saying the crosstown shootout in my neighborhood is rival gang members going at it.
Right.
And, I got that whole thing. We called me and brought me in and ripped me a new one. But for him to show up in my neighborhood and everybody's hanging out. In California, when ain't nothing to do in the house, your mom used to kick you outside. She had to go outside and hang. Everybody's hanging. He come in there, with a sweatsuit on, giving me dap, chest hugging me and all that stuff, and come and sit down and just as comfortable, eating all my mom's food, and made a promise that he was going to graduate me and take care of me, like just right in her face. Never looked nervous, didn't look out the window.
Right.
I mean, he was cool. And then once you get a chance to realize that this is the essence of who he is. Now, on the court, totally different. Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hugs.
Right.
He changes personalities, but getting 900 victories, it's a lot of people whose lives were affected for the positive. Some have ran with that, and some are still trying to grapple with how they're going to deal with their life, but Hugs had a big impact on a lot of lives.
For sure. And when he won that 900th game, talk about that scene.
I mean, to see Eric Martin and Larry Harrison, who's been with him from the inception, Eric being my teammate, we drove down to meet Eric and Corey in the Plymouth Sundance from California all the way down here.
What were you listening to?
We had My Name Was D-Nice. We had some Boogie Down Productions. We had all that stuff in the early 90s, right?
The cassette tapes.
Yeah. And then Larry Harrison, who was our big man coach, to have those guys be in the inner circle grabbing Hugs, and then all of the players around him, and they're grabbing him and they're jumping up and down saying Hugs, and he's just standing there thinking about he ain't moving whatsoever.
Thinking about his bourbon and cigar.
Right, thinking about his bourbon and cigar, man. But he's the coolest they come, man. He's the humble. He's humble. He's everybody's best friend, and he was voted like 3 years in a row as the coach you most likely want to have a beer with.
Absolutely.
From the other coaches.
And he'd enjoy a beer with somebody.
That's right.
And hopefully he's in the Hall of Fame very soon.
He will get.
Right. It'll happen.
Yeah.
It should be very, very soon. Thanks for being here, Terry. My next guest, standout high school basketball player here in Cincinnati, Ohio for Summit Country Day. Played basketball for the Bearcats from 2013 to 2017 under Mick Cronin. He now does color commentary for the Bearcats. And, he came on the podcast a couple times this season. And when I think about Kevin, I looked at some of his tweets recently, and my guest is Kevin Johnson. But when he tweeted out recently, I was thinking this Bearcat basketball team right now that just finished their season, if they could have a senior leader on this team, they needed a Kevin Johnson. Like to welcome in my guy, number 25, Kevin Johnson.
Appreciate it, Meach.
Oh, you hit me with the cool voice.
Appreciate it, Meach. Appreciate it, Meach. We gotta.
You're listening to Mellow Moods.
Appreciate it. But no, seriously, man. Just happy to be here. And speak aside, I think as a former player and not so far out, just to get a perspective. I even seen a culture change, a generational change within players. And I also coach high school basketball, so it's funny to take a player perspective, which I've had not too long ago, and then now clash it in with a coach's perspective, coaching over at Summit Country Day, and then understanding that balance. So just wanted to speak out and let people know that I think players and coaches, good and bad, it all play hand in hand, but it's some deeper things within your team that I think is what success is all about when we talk college basketball here. Yeah,
for sure. And you, like I said before, you played for Mick Cronin, and Mick just won. This won their game. Have you spoken with Mick in a while?
Actually, we was talking before the Michigan State game.
Okay.
Before the Michigan State game. And that's still my guy, man. Actually, one of the guys that got me into this media thing as well. But even on the court, just winner. And I don't think – and I was just talking to Keith about this. It's something you don't really expose. I think when you're going through this process, you kind of leave it together, and it's a cult. But learned a lot from him. And I think winning is a formula, and it's deeper than just going out there and scoring 30 and just making it that easy.
Yeah.
But we'll hear a little bit about that as we get going, man.
Yeah, no, for sure. Appreciate you being here.
For sure.
My next guest, who's here as well. Now, if any reporter in Cincinnati, if you were to tell me any reporter had an R&B album coming out, it would be this guy. It'd be the smoothest R&B album of all time. He is the Cincinnati Bearcat beat reporter for the Cincinnati Enquirer. You can call him Keith Sweat, but I'm going to call him Keith Jackson.
Jenkins.
Keith Jenkins. Keith Jenkins. I'm mixing up all my R&B people.
Jackson was a great journalist, though, so we take that.
Keith Jenkins. How you doing, man? Appreciate
I'm
you.
good, brother. I can't sing. I wish I could.
I was going to ask you, can you?
If I could sing, I'd sing all the time. Bruh, you know what I'm saying? Nah, I'm good, though. I'm good. It's good to be. We got a great team of perspectives here, so I'm excited to get into a great conversation.
For sure. And when you came on the podcast, I believe twice, right? I think we had a great rapport back and forth, and it's great to have you in town reporting on the Bearcats. And I said this before, and I said this on the podcast. It's also great that we have more black representation in sports journalism in greater Cincinnati area. So definitely very happy to have you here, and definitely want you on the podcast moving forward.
I appreciate it. No, we always have a great time. We chop it up, and we keep it light and fun, but we also talk basketball and football and latest news and notes around UC. So whenever you want me on, man, just say the word and I'm there.
Your knowledge of the past with Bearcat sports is very impressive. I wasn't even prepared that you had that much knowledge of Bearcat history. I mean, I understood you're a Bearcat fan, but I mean, you really know your stuff.
No, I mean, Pops played football here, and then I was recruited to play football here as well. So, I mean, it was deeper than just fandom. Family members graduating with UC degrees, and so it was a campus and teams and programs that I've been around my entire life. So, when the opportunity came for me to come back and cover these teams and these programs and these players and these coaches, it was a no-brainer. So I think it's a happy marriage for the Enquirer, myself, and for UC and myself. And this past week has been tough. And we'll get into that. But I've been here like 8-9 months. I didn't anticipate seeing this so quickly, but nonetheless, it's been fun. It's been fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for being here. Last but not least, wasn't sure if he was going to be here. My last guest, who covers the Bearcat football and basketball for the Front Office News, had him on several times during the season. He actually had me on his podcast. He quickly learned that if you not only talk about Bearcat hoops, but then start talking about shoes, you're going to have to make a 2-part podcast.
Pretty much.
He had me on a podcast. We finished up. He's like, yeah, I'm going to have to slice this into 2 different podcasts. Yeah, so now you know. Now you know you got to make them 2 separate things.
For sure.
My guy, JT Smith, in the house. How you doing?
Good, man. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, no problem. Now, you're able to be here today because your son plays baseball,
Yep.
but he didn't make the championship game.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry to hear, but I'm happy you're here.
I know it's bittersweet, man.
Yeah.
But they represented well, so it's all good.
Shout out the team.
Yeah, Cincinnati Tigers, man. 12U.
12U.
Yeah.
What's your son's first name?
Julian.
Julian.
So he'll probably be happy if he hear this. He'd be like, Dad, you shouted me out?
There you go.
Yeah.
You don't shout him out on your own podcast?
Not all the time, man. He be trying to sneak in there looking at me to record and stuff.
Oh.
When you hear the door, you see the door open, I'll be doing the Zooms and you see some
Yeah.
kid peeking in. It's probably
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, that happened a lot during the pandemic with the Zooms, like people running back and forth in the back. Quickly, as a group, anybody want to talk about their bracket?
What bracket?
I didn't make one.
You did.
I didn't make one.
The USA Today called me an expert. I'm like, come on now, don't give me that. Don't put that stress on me. Don't put that stress on me. But I still got Gonzaga and Baylor in the finals, so Michigan. So we're rolling.
Okay.
We didn't think Illinois would lose today, though. Sheesh.
Yeah.
Sheesh.
I mean, I think of all years, this is the year where you just have to throw a lot of stuff out the window. Like I believe, Keith, you said before we started, Barack Obama had all number 1 seeds. And I'm like, this is the year you can't do that. Something wacky's going to happen. And I was almost hoping that we would have a but a very different looking championship game than we've ever seen. I thought that'd be cool for the actual sport.
We still might. I mean, we could see somebody, Oral Roberts or somebody, just go on a crazy run, and yeah, for sure. The way they play, they are a tough team to be. I mean, they're unselfish. They got a big man who's aggressive and can pass and shoot, and like you said, like Jokic a little bit. So that's an interesting team to watch for sure.
And I think, and Terry, Sister Jean with I think Bearcats need a Sister Jean or somebody because
We got brother Tyrone. I don't know. He ain't been able to get out lately,
COVID holding him down.
He ain't got no ride. His ride ain't working. Right. Tyrone, he needs some help. He need a GoFundMe or something. Need a sponsor.
Speaking of sponsor, this segment is sponsored by the College of Arts and Sciences at the University of Cincinnati. That great segue. Right. They have a new flexible bachelor's degree that will allow you to graduate conveniently and affordably. You won't lose any credit or have to start over. Okay, let's go ahead and jump into this past season, the 2020-2021 season. I'm sitting here looking at the roster at the start of the season, okay? I'm just going to read the names off to you just to refresh everybody's memory. David DeJulius, Zach Harvey, Keith Williams, Mike Saunders, Tari Eason, Mamadou Diarra, Micah Adams-Woods, Jeremiah Davenport, Victor, I believe you say is it Locken?
Yeah.
Sam Martin, Chris Vogt, Rob Banks, Adam Cook, Mason Madsen, Gabe Madsen, Ivan Rapalos, how you say it? Rapalauskas, all those names. Okay, as I read those to you, what were your guys' expectations at the start of the season, looking at this roster, new guys in, some of the guys coming back, mixture of Keith and what I think people were excited about Chris Vogt at that time. What was your guys' expectations?
My initial reaction, I saw that roster, I said, okay, we got some exciting guys that are coming in, they're going to compete. I was wondering, but my biggest question was where they're going to get leadership from.
Yeah.
Keith's not a vocal guy. Chris Vogt's not necessarily a vocal guy. And, Mamadou's trying to fit in. So it's not a good thing when new guys come in and become your leaders, whether they be freshmen or whether they be transfers, because they don't know the Bearcat culture. And the Bearcat culture has been set and established from Huggins era through the Cronin era, and all of a sudden you have the mass exodus when it's over, and then you have a new team coming in and there's devoid of leadership. So when you don't have leadership and nobody can trickle down the culture, when there's nobody teaching the culture, then you get whatever is happening this year. Like if you had a KJ on that team, and I thought KJ, and I told him this many times over, that I thought he was the best defensive two guard off the ball in college basketball his senior year. You know how Troy would bait a guy coming this way, he would steal it and then go get a two-hand dunk, hang on the rim. I said, man, this guy he's special. But during timeouts, it was Troy and it was this cat getting guys in the huddle, talking to them, making sure they knew where they were, and being a buffer between the coach, because Cronin is, it's like a steak where you ain't got no teeth. Sometimes you can't take it all at once.
Right.
So you need somebody like him. Right. And then so all of a sudden you don't have that now. And so you got a coach who's demanding, and you got players who are not used to being pushed this way, and it was a cluster.
Yeah. And KJ, he segued to, I think, a lot of good things. Talk about real quick your attention to detail defensively. Where does all that come from?
I'll be honest, man. And when I speak on this, part coach, part player. I think part of me as a Midwest hooper, and I know part of you, like Terry, you're around here, and Alex, you're around here too. I think it's part of who we are. Like Ohio basketball, defensive-minded, not always maybe the most talented scoring, but heart. We're a heart on our sleeves. I think that's just kind of what you get out of a Cincinnati basketball player, which is why I see a lot of that in Davenport. But also Coach Cronin, dissecting defensive plans down, watching film, scouting report, and those are the details and what we believed what we were going to win by. When I got to Cincinnati, man, it's funny, because I sit back and I laugh because I was watching some highlights last week from my senior year, and they on there like, this has been Mick Cronin's most high-scoring team, da-da-da-da-da. And, I never paid attention to this back when I was playing. It's just like, we're trying to win. And I remember coming to Cincinnati my first year, man, we was like winning games like 47-49. Like, I'm not joking. We couldn't score a lick. Yeah. So it's funny to see that same team actually, won the conference with Louisville and was actually successful as well. But that's what I'm talking about, the details, the formula of winning. But like Terry said, the leadership. Every year when I walked on that campus, it was a leader there. I mean, Justin Jackson, Sean Kilpatrick, and you flow on the, other guys like Tavius Ellis, Shaq Thomas, go for it myself, Troy Copain. So I think when that comes a thing, like you got guys, when I was there, Justin Jennifer coming in, right then and there, he can learn the culture from a guy that's like, no, this is what we're about. And then that just kind of trickles down. But back to what you asked, I thought that was a good question, too, about this team, because I actually thought this team could find some leadership. Successful team the year before with Keith Williams, Chris Vogt. You got Alvin coming in as a fifth year who won at Colgate. And then I just tried to figure out how do you mesh this. I think coach's plan is to play fast. I'm not sure if you can play fast with a 7-foot guy. So it's also like, what is this team? How do they win?
Right.
So it was interesting, but that's what I was trying to figure out. How does he work his system with his players?
So, I mean, and you talked a lot about leadership, but at what point, first couple games, I think they Lipscomb, then they played Xavier. Where were some issues? Were the issues that you saw initially lack of leadership or just not togetherness?
I'm going to be fair with this year. They came in, no exhibition games, no pre-preparation. I will say, all summer, all year, we were bonding together as brothers. I think that counts going into a season. Definitely when you got young guys, 8 new players, summertime is real important when you got those transitional years. So going into it, I'm being honest, I just was looking for, let's just see if we tough.
Yeah.
Let's see if we just tough enough. Let's throw the ball off the rim. Let's see if we can jump high enough to get it,
Right.
And then some of the early losses when you – and no disrespect to Lipscomb or any of these lower-level teams, but even on a bad night, I just don't expect Cincinnati to lose. With the athletes, the basketball players that they do have. That was where I was probably caught my confusion as a former player.
Yeah, and JT, one thing that I think I noticed right away, and almost everybody sitting at this table here noticed after the Lipscomb and Xavier game, I think everybody said, Vogt and Rapp together are not a good mix on the court. But you know what? But that's back to KJ's point, though. There was no preseason to really figure that out. You're figuring it out on the fly. But I think everybody at that point, after that Xavier game, and even Byron Larkin, a very good friend of mine, he called me and he says, "Man, I like this team, but you can't play those two at the same time."
Yeah, and we talked about that on your pod.
Yep.
Actually, at the time, it was like, I see what he was trying to do, especially without the preseason games. Especially how Rapp played against us the year before. You see go inside and out. But with him and Vogt on those pick and rolls, they were like a fish out of water. So, we quickly saw that. Xavier, the team, they try to spread us out. A free man on those guys, and you saw it. They were just picking and rolling. And that was, once they got people have that on tape, then that's what everybody's going to do. And then I'll fast forward a little bit. I think Brandon did a good job trying to adjust with the players he had, later in the season. But early, he was kind of like, trying to get those seniors on the floor, and it just wasn't the right mix for him, I think.
Yeah. Now, how many games did you attend this year?
Man.
The home games, yeah.
I probably did 7.
7?
But my interns were there a lot. So.
Okay. How was the vibe when you were there? He did flex it, didn't he? My interns.
Just building the brand, man. You know what I'm saying? Trying to do well, get people in positions. You know what I'm saying? But
you can say it. It was a flex. Go ahead.
It was a flex.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm trying to get to that point.
Okay.
One day. But
yeah. So how was the vibe?
Man, I didn't realize how much the fans not being in the gym made a difference. Like literally, okay, I probably should say this on the pod, but like even with me covering the game during basketball, you could kind of cheer if you want to. Like if you see a good dunk, you can stand up a little bit, you can clap. Nobody's gonna pull you out of there. But if I would have did that this year, they would have escorted my play out of there. But it's just, you could tell the energy. Like Jeremiah was like the human spark plug for them this year, which is huge.
Sure.
But they didn't have him this year without that crowd. It would have really been rough because, it just seemed like more like a practice / I'm playing, I got my 5 boys. Yep.
Those secret scrimmages they have.
Yeah. It's like, all right, Terry got 5. All right, I got my 5. We about to go get KJ, you got your 5. Keith, you trying to hoop? All right, we about to get it in. That's what it looked like, but it just had officials on the court. You know what I'm saying? And officials were. Can we talk about the officiating slightly? Or
wait. We're gonna hold that because we need to talk. We will talk about the refs because I want to talk about this charge call, and there's no better expert with charge calls than Terry Nelson. I do want to touch upon that because these charge calls are out of hand. I mean, I think they're bad. But
I think it's the signal.
Huh?
I think it's the signal, man.
They enjoy that. The power trip
good,
of
man.
it feels good.
Especially if your arms is cool, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man. But no, I think you make a great point though. You think about young players and you think about college basketball players. A lot of them feed off of emotion.
Yeah.
Right? You think about a Terry Nelson, when he played, he'd take a charge, the crowd would go crazy. And he would jump up and pump his fists. KJ would lock somebody down, get a big steal, get a dunk. The crowd goes crazy. Yeah. There's that energy there. They're not getting that call response. The players aren't. So it's a very, very different vibe. And with so many new young guys, I do think that played a part into a lot of these guys' psyche. And Keith, I want to transition into. We talked about Vogt and Rapp, but I want to talk about somebody that you spoke a lot about on the podcast, and I think we started to see more of him after that Tennessee game because Mamadou opted out. And I'm talking about Tari Eason and how special Tari was this season. Unfortunately, he won't be with us anymore. And I hate to bring up something that, but I mean, just speak about Tari.
No, I mean that was the biggest blow, right? I mean, I think when you talk about who was on the roster at the beginning, there was obviously a lot of question marks. I think Mike Saunders Jr. was a big question mark. At that size, Would he be able to play at this level, this aggressive conference, this physical conference? And he more than proved that. I think as the season went on, he was a player that, against Memphis, he wasn't afraid, right? He faced all these taller defenders, and he went right in there and into the jungle and played well. Tari was a freak from the beginning. It's been a long time since we've seen someone that long, that athletic, that can pass, that can shoot the three, that has confidence as a freshman. He was just a special player from the very beginning. And I think when we started to see glimpses of him early, it was just a matter of time before he started. Just a matter of time before we throw him in the starting lineup. I think once Brandon realized, I can't put Rapp and Chris out there together. I got to put Tari out there to mix it up. But I think the encouraging thing with Tari was from the very beginning, we anticipated seeing those freshman moments, and he had them. But he was just special. He does a lot of things that you can't teach. His ability to help from the weak side. Chris would get blown away on a drive or whatever, and then Tari come out of nowhere with a weak side block, and then he'll grab it off the rim and dish it, and we on a fast break, and he'll dunk it on the other end. He's just a guy that I think, stepping outside of a journalist hat and just being a fan of UC basketball, that's the sad part, is not being able to watch him learn and grow and wear that uniform. And
it's just funny because he just didn't get it. He the type of player, I believe, if he would have had a crowd, he wouldn't even leave.
Yeah,
because the fans would attract to him 1,000.
100%.
He was the most exciting guy for me on the team. Through just random plays, I will agree. And Cincinnati fans would have made him want to stay. I will say I think the experience got rocky for him.
Sure.
But the fandemonium would have brought him back, man, because he was a great guy for this program.
And we talked about the fans, but think about the history of Fifth Third Arena, the shoe, and how well that team has played there historically. That's one of the better one of the better home court advantages in all of college basketball.
Yep.
That in the way that it's built, right? The noise traps in there, it's hard to hear a lot of times when that thing gets rocking.
Yeah.
And look at the losses that they had. I don't remember the number now, but they had a lot of games where it was lost by 4, lost by 3, lost by 6. The crosstown shootout was close. You think if they had that home court advantage, those losses may be flipped, and we might not be having this conversation today.
Yep.
If that win-loss record is a little different, okay, now we're talking about guys maybe sticking around, learning and growing and building on the success of this year. Now we're talking about 6 guys in the transfer portal.
Yeah.
So it's that close.
You make a lot of great points. One more thing, Keith. When I watched Tari, I thought about the first time I saw Maxiel, the first time I saw Hicks, those type of Bearcat players where you're like, man, by the time they finished their career, there's just something about him that had the old school Bearcat feel to him, and Bearcat fans just immediately gravitated towards him.
No, and that's, like you said, he's one of those fan favorite guys because he had the DNA, and I think, and you two can speak to this especially, but I think Brandon, if there's one lesson that he will learn from this year, is, okay, did I recruit the right guy? Because a UC basketball player has a certain DNA. They have a certain mindset.
That's a great point.
They have a certain selflessness. They have a certain grit and determination. They play different defense. This program is built defensively. We're going to kill you defensively, and we're going to use our defense to create offense. It's been that way for 40 years, 50 years, right? And I think his struggle all year long was to get those guys to build into that. Well, dude, this isn't NKU. I'm not sure you recruited the right player for UC basketball. Now, they may be good players, but are they good players here? And I think that's something that maybe he learned that maybe I didn't, So hopefully as he's hitting that recruiting trail now, he's starting to figure out, okay, this is the kind of player I need to recruit.
Yeah, for sure. And Terry, I want to talk about a player that's here with us, and KJ talked about him earlier. I think he's one of those guys, when you look at Bearcats of the past, you look at Kenyon Martin from year 1 to the end of his career. Like I mentioned, Maxiel. You look at the progression of a lot of these players. If you look at from year 1 to year 2, Jeremiah Davenport might have improved more than any other player in Bearcat history. And I will say in the country, under conditions that people could make excuses that we couldn't improve because of this. But yet Jeremiah Davenport improved all around.
Not to mention the conditions. He's coming off 2 ACL surgeries or PCL surgeries where he didn't even finish the season. He had one to start the season, came back early, had his bounce a little bit too early, hurt it again, had another surgery, took 7 months to get back to where he was, gym rat. You can shoot as many jump shots in your brain as you can on the court and still have the same percentage. It's mind repetition. Sure. He's always been that. I mean, when he was a freshman and he would get out there early with Jaron Cumberland, and he'd be shooting in pregame with his headphones on, practicing his pose, like how it was going to look.
Right.
Like holding it up until it went in. Then when it went in, he would turn to look at the fans, and he was mentally preparing to be the star.
Yep.
To see the work that he put in and to know the history. He grew up being a Bearcat fan, watching KJ and all those guys.
No question.
Knowing the Bearcat, knowing the program that he came from. A gritty program that's producing not just high majors at Moeller, but NBA players.
Yep,
so
Jackson Hayes.
He's used to that. And then he comes to a place where he's been wanting to be all his life. And the offseason, like if you can get some playing time your freshman year, it's going to propel you. It's going to make you hungry. Especially when, there's some opportunities the following year to put that work in and then to come in there. And I referee with his dad, D. Mm-hmm. And, and he always come back and tell me, he goes, he tells me that a lot of the guys are complaining. A lot of the guys are talking about opting out. This is before the season started. A lot of the guys talking about leaving already. And he said, and Jeremiah was like, look, I don't care what they doing. I'm focused. Like, I'm trying to get my game on, And he wasn't even starting. Mm-hmm. And then he goes from not starting to coming in, having a little bit of success, and then all of a sudden to the point where at the end of the year, if he don't show up, you have no chance. Of winning the game.
Hey, if he opted out, it's a wrap.
Whole another conversation.
Yeah,
I mean, I used to get on him because his defensive acumen was not where I'm like, dog, you play for Moeller. I'm like, I ain't trying to hear all that. Like, Carl is he is a defensive wizard, and you're not even trying to rotate defensively. You're not even trying to take a charge. Come on, man. Who at Moeller does not take? It's a drill that y'all do.
Right.
And on the season, I believe that they only had less than 10 charges on the year. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just how bad the defense was. They were good at stripping. They were good at getting deflections. But as far as position defense, it was non-existent. And so I used to get mad at him for not boxing out. Mm-hmm. I'm like, Dab, come on, man. What are you doing? Like, You're getting 6-7 rebounds, and you're playing out of position. You're playing the stretch 4 when you're normally a 3, so you got to battle down there, you and Tari, with 6'9", 240-pound guys, and they just backing you in, pushing you and abusing you. But he's fighting. He ain't talking to the coach saying, switch me. He's like, no, I got it. Mm-hmm. And he may not win the battles all the time, but, he's out there competing.
No, but he's the DNA. Like, he's the guy that's got the DNA, right? Like, I think about how much foul trouble this team had this season. And it was a lot of, like, I don't want to bash anybody today, but, like, Chris Vogt isn't it. And it's no disrespect to Chris. I think he's a great guy. I think he works hard. I think he means well. But the DNA of a UC basketball player is just not that. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Yep. Like, his inability to just play aggressive, effective, smart defense without being in foul trouble is he just couldn't do that. Jeremiah he just got that DNA in him. You know what I'm saying? So that was, but then he's just a hooper, right? Like, he's just a flat out hooper. Look at his family. Like, he got a whole his sister.
I was gonna say
she scored 50 the other night. Like, she balls.
Listen, you look at sports families that have come out of Cincinnati. I mean, you look at the Larkins, the Griffeys, the Wolf family. You have to put the Davenports up there. I mean, the accomplishments of that family, they've got to be up there, and they need more. They need more recognition.
Yeah, right.
I got to tell you a quick story though. So, when Jeremiah's brother was playing at Moeller, I guess it would be his oldest brother, Michael. Jeremiah was like a little ball boy, and he was a little fat boy. Do you remember this, KJ?
Man, I used to play with his brother Josh Davenport, went to Winthrop.
Yep.
He graduated 13 too. And we used to play for the Cincinnati Knights back in the day, our AAU team. And little Jeremiah, short, fat, curly hair. When I tell you he would not leave the gym, they would literally have to force this little man to like, come on. I mean, so now to see him older, it cracked me up because we're not that far apart, but at that time he seemed so much younger than me.
Yeah.
But to see him now, I'm like, whoa.
It's
I mean,
amazing.
it's DNA of the family.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
From dad to mom and all the brothers and now sisters. And that's what I think. And I don't know if Coach Brennan, going into the job even thought about a DNA. I think there's different kinds of way to win. I'm not saying that there's one specific way to win. But being a former player at Cincinnati, we always used to be curious of who was going to come in and help us. Like, who coming next year? Who's that next freshman? I remember, man, sitting in my room. Yeah, no joke. When you want to win, you're going to know that Justin Jackson leaving, we need somebody going to block shots at the rim. Like, we no disrespect to Chris Vogt, but I'm looking at Chris coming in like, yo, are you going to block that? I'm going to wall him up, but your job is to block that. That's how we going to win. So sometimes, like, we would be looking for that. So I remember one day me and Troy sitting in the room, sophomore year, going into our sophomore year, Justin Jackson's leaving, crazy shot blocker. We knew it. Like, hey, our defense is legit because Justin. So we like, who's coming in? They send us this link, and it's Gary Clark. So we look it up on YouTube. He's like, Baller's Life tape, just dunking everywhere. I say, he gonna help us. We need him. We're gonna bring him in here. He's gonna work out. And those are the things that
was he the
I
first
wonder.
Freshman? Wasn't Gary
straight to start?
Undercroning to start?
Yeah, it's the start.
Right from the start.
From the jump.
Yeah.
So,
Time leader at Clayton High School.
I'm not joking. Like,
points, rebounds, blocks.
Wow.
You gotta look it up sometime. I mean, real dope Baller's Life tape. So I'm like, oh yeah, need him.
And another thing on Davenport, like I said, I refereed with his father. And when everybody was talking about transferring, I said, what's up with Dav? And he said, I told him, and he know this, we are a no transfer family. He said, we don't know. You start what you finish what you start.
I love it. I love it.
All right.
No,
So
that's good.
So that's crazy that you say that, right? So like I did the pod, seeing all those transfers, I was like, dang, this is crazy. I'm not gonna lie. You're like, man, you see all those young freshmen and everything. You see those sophomores. You're like, you see the base. Now they just got to get a couple pieces around it. But then they're like, I'm like, man, I don't even know personally, but I know Davenport isn't. Like, he's staying. Like, he is Cincinnati. He's like, he would have to do something like elbow drop him and throw him under the bus or something for me to think that he's gonna go out of here. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if that's politically correct, but I said, but I just felt like I knew he wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
And that was just like, even before you said that, I'm like, man, I don't even worry about checking on JD. Like, that's.
Well, that was good to see his tweet.
Yeah.
That he said.
He put it out there. Boom.
Yeah.
When we was all wondering, okay, what's JD gonna do? He dropped that sheet. Now we good regardless, or something like that.
Yeah.
We gonna be all right regardless. I think that was the exact words he said. When you were thinking, is JD coming back? He put everybody's mind at ease. Like, I'm here.
That was huge.
DNA, bro. DNA.
I just got to tell this quick JD story real quick, Jeremiah. When his brother was playing at Moeller, they played one of the biggest games of the year. They were playing St. X at Moeller, and JD's a little chubby kid. And this is a big game. You know how the GCL games are. It's packed. Jeremiah was a ball boy. Well, right after halftime, Jeremiah went down. Jeremiah talked about this. He remembers this. He went and got a bag of Skittles. Well, he opened up the Skittles, ate some, put them in his pocket. Well, during the game, you know how they have to wipe the floor or whatever? So he went to wipe the floor, and he went to take out and get a Skittles, and his Skittles went flying everywhere. And this little fat kid, he just ran. Man, it was Skittles everywhere, and he just looked.
And he was fat. It just makes it worse.
He tried to pick up like 2 or 3, and he just ran. And his dad just started laughing. And now he's leading the Bearcat basketball team.
Full circle.
Full circle, man. You gotta love it. Quickly, this segment is sponsored by the College of Arts and Sciences at the University of Cincinnati. Now, I do want to jump into. We've got another opt-out coming, so. The Bearcats, let's see, they lose to Tennessee on the road. Mamadou opts out. Lose to USF. Lose to Georgia, which was the biggest loss to that point. Lose at USF. Then Gabe opts out. Gabe Madsen.
Yeah.
And then people are like, okay, what's going on? Now people are getting concerned. And I personally thought coming into the season, you heard a lot about Gabe and Mason, his brother, and that Mason was a package deal. And Brandon's like, no, it's not a package deal. Mason can actually play.
Yeah.
But everyone said Gabe's the better one. Gabe didn't play a lot. Mason, I believe, was hurt for a while during the first part of the season. And then Gabe opts out, and it's just like, what's going on? What were your thoughts at that time?
Man, so I thought, like, once Gabe opted out, I thought Mason was just going to opt out, like, immediately after him, just because twins and you know how that goes. You're connected by the hip, just from life. But it was weird. But, like, in theory, I might have been naive, but I thought maybe a Gabe would come back probably during the season for some reason. I don't know why. I just thought that. But when May started playing real well, I really just thought maybe around the corner he might just be like, hey, let me get some shots up too. When it's only like 7-8 people with scholarships in there, you get some burn. But it just wasn't meant to be, I guess, for him.
And it looked like Gabe started traveling the country. I don't know if you guys saw that. Like he kind of just took off and maybe just had to get in the right space and find that love again, which I understand.
And I actually didn't even think it was that serious. I actually took the opt out at the time, thinking that he thought it was just no room to play. And then with the year being the way it was, you get granted your year back.
Right.
I opt out. I'll keep my team safe because I don't want to be the guy that's stepping out and I'm around my brother with COVID. I just thought it made sense as far as him just waiting to get some time for next year. Not really necessarily that it was actually a problem going on behind the scenes.
Yeah. Terry, you want to add on?
If you had a team that had more upperclassmen and more leadership back, and you only had, instead of 8 new players, 3 to 4 new players, you wouldn't have had as many opt-outs because the culture would have been established. Guys would have known routines. Don't go here. This is what you do. When you're by yourself, this is sort of how you have to, adjust. A lot of these guys, for the first time in their life, are out of the house. So you get to the point where when you start to become a known prodigy or quantity in basketball, and whether you're 10th grade, 11th grade, you're starting to get some rankings, you've been in the AAU circuit, get a little fame, you start to get a lot of this. And when people introduce you, oh, this is my boy KJ, he going to UC. He's still in high school, he going to UC, and everybody's like, oh, yeah, he D1, he D1, he D1. So they get all that. And then, so you get to the point where even the scripture says you judge, you fire purifies. That's how you test silver and gold. But God tests the hearts with praise. So if you want to test somebody, you give them some praise. And then when they get praise, they get soft because they're sitting over there looking at the crowd and letting everybody know how, like Michael Jordan would never take the praise. He would look at him like, "What? Why are you telling me this? Like, right. I know all this, but why are you saying it?
Right?
Like, what, are you trying to get on my good side? Whatever." And he would take it and look for him and Kobe, look for holes to patch up because they knew that the fame would turn in an instant if they did something wrong. And the fact that you had all these young players keep coming in and coming out, and when they're looking at the situation, they're like, "Man, I don't like it." I think in like the NFL, you opt in for the season or you don't. You can't keep coming back and forth. But not having a family structure on your own for the longest, not having some OGs around you to help you, take you, host families, and sort of nurture you a little bit, not having that, it was a real detriment. It was a perfect storm for this year.
Now, Terry, I want to ask you this question real quick. I've been dying to ask you this question. If this was the 1992 team, put them now, how do you think you guys would have handled the whole pandemic? Who opted out? I would have been. I don't know if I'd have opted. I tried to leave when I first got here, because I couldn't. Yeah. It's the initial first couple of weeks, because when the coach recruits you, they're gonna say all the right stuff to get you here. And Cronin is one of the masters of this. Cronin can speak that stuff. He know how to give you the dap and all that. Him and Hugs the same way. But then the switch turns in because they give you 2 weeks to try to learn the system. And after about 2 weeks, it's like something happens. They come into a gym one day, you do something wrong, and you are the IRA of their entire fire that day. Yeah. And on the line,
You be like, no, we gonna sharpen this tool today. Today, on the line. And so we had older guys. We had guys that were 22, 23, a lot of 21, 22. See it with a bunch of older guys. Our freshmen didn't play. And so, because we had so many older guys. And so the older guys got a little bit of room to talk to each other like men. And so Hugs would give us the room to vent, to curse, to do whatever. And Hugs would poke you guys and then back up. You know, just to see how you guys were going to respond. And he would curse you out, and he would allow you to curse back. And he'd be like, okay, that's cool. I got you. On the line, though. I hear you. Yeah. We going to run, but I ain't going to stop you from playing because I'm trying to breed this toughness within. So, and I've been at your practices, sitting in the gym, and Cronin will say anything to make you guys turn the level up in practice. And then once he gets you there, he's gonna look clapping stuff and all that stuff, but he's trying to do it on purpose.
And that's what a lot of people don't know. Everybody can't come to practice. Everybody doesn't understand this. And I wish I could take this group of kids and take them to a practice of ours. You know what I mean? And show you that, because sometimes you get caught in your own little bubble. Just like when I was at Cincinnati, I didn't know how my guy at West Virginia was practicing, or what my dude was doing over there at wherever school they were at. So you just know what you're doing in y'all culture and y'all little space. But I would like to tell the guys, like, as a coach, when you got some talent and you know we can win, it's only one way I think they can get it out of you, and it's being an asshole. It's just straight up. Just straight up be an asshole. Say something to you that's really going to piss you off. And either most competitive people respond one way. And let's go at it. Let's tack it head on first. Let's prove him wrong. And I think when I talk about generational differences, that's what I mean by that. I think there's so much praising early. I remember growing up, the only way I could get on YouTube was Hoop Mixtape. It's all kinds of mixtapes and Instagram. You can just go viral real easy. Dunked on people before AU. It's like glorified now. So it's just, you already get this super pat on the back, and it's an illusion because you already think you accomplished it so much. So I get it. So you got this entitlement coming on in, and I was like that too. We all like that, but it's even worse today. So you come in with the entitlement. This is what I'm supposed to do, and then when coach punch you right in the mouth, it's like, he wrong. Right. Coach has been lying. Right. Nah, coach just been doing his job. That's right. This is his job for coach. You just met coach now, and if you can't embrace that, it can be rough. It can be rough for you.
No, but I just wanted to add in every point that you guys are making is completely valid, but then you add in a global pandemic, right? So like the importance of older guys and leadership, the importance of mental toughness, like the importance of buying in and shedding that entitlement. Like all of that is uber important always, but then you add in something that none of us have ever encountered ever in life. Like these 18, 19, 20-year-olds are being away from their family and friends, and they can't leave their dorms, their apartments. The only thing they can do is play ball or maybe go to wherever, but like they literally can't do anything. And then, now a guy's got COVID and we on a 25-day pause. Now we can't do anything. The only guy that can really move is David DeJulius because he had COVID over the offseason. He had the antibodies, so he's cool. So him and Brandon are on the floor, and nobody else can hoop. So like I think for me being the journalist and doing my stories every single time out, I always try to keep in the perspective how truly difficult this year is. And we really can't even fathom how hard this, I remember telling Michelle Clark Hurd, the women's coach, I was talking to her about Imari Thomas because she was balling, right? And I was like, when I was playing football at Toledo freshman year, away from my family, away from my friends, didn't know anybody there, if I had to deal with that, like being in seclusion and family members are sick, or I don't know a lot of people on the team, so the dudes that I am cool with, they get COVID and now I can't kick it with them. How hard that would be mentally for me. Sure. I would be losing my mind. So I always try to keep that in perspective because I think we like fans think these are the Lakers. These aren't the Lakers. No. These are Mike Saunders Jr. was in high school 8 months ago or whatever it was. You know what I'm saying? Tari Eason was in high school.
Yep.
2 years ago, Jeremiah wasn't, like, you know what I mean? Like, these are kids. I know we call them young men, and they are. I get it. But in the grand scheme of it, they are still children learning, growing, and they need that Terry Nelson, that 22-year-old, 23-year-old, Keith Williams, Chris Vogtney to step up and help these guys through it. I just think keeping all this in perspective, all of this went on during the most difficult time of all these guys' lives.
Like you said, like it's a perfect storm. And I mean, just in general, like I'm the one that hasn't. I wasn't D1. That, you know what I'm saying? I went to UC, but you know, I would see James White, whoever. We play Madden, whatever. But I couldn't imagine just as a regular student at UC not being able to. It was the first time being away from the house. I come in the dorm 2, 3 o'clock. I ain't got to worry about mom tripping. When you just got a structure, and it just I don't think I would be able to be good at that too. I mean, I'm just moving freely. I go hoop, go study, do whatever, and you don't got to worry about nothing. You just confined to be like, okay, we about to go hoop for an hour. You can talk. Maybe it's probably only 3 or 4 teammates there. You go back. You might get some food. Playing the game. After a while, you get burnt out, and it's just like that's the one thing. I had to take a step back because, I'll write something and then people are like, they're not this, they're not that. But I'm like, man, the mental health issue is more prevalent nowadays than ever. And where everybody kind of thought that was taboo, like, all right, just think about football. People get concussions and then people kind of shrug that off for a while. Like, just you get your bell run, boom, get back in there, run that slant. You know what I mean? But, now you're like, hey, coach, I'm messed up. I gotta sit over here. And it's more accepted. And I think how this team was so young with COVID in general in mental health. I just think it wasn't the perfect mix. They didn't have that KJ, that Terry type leader. Keith is quiet. You know that you ask Keith a question, he's gonna give you a couple word answer. That's just how he is. But I just think it was a perfect storm for them, and then you had to take a step back, just look at both sides. You're gonna get coached harder, of course, in college than you're going to get coached in high school because you at a different level. Yeah, D1 UC isn't Holy Cross, you know what I mean, or that type of school. It's not NKU, exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's not NKU, so it's a different level,
But you also, here's another perspective. Fathers are protective of their daughters. Mothers are protective of their sons. It's just the dynamic the way it is. There's not a lot of fathers involved in our recruiting class of our freshmen. You got a lot of outspoken Twitter gangster mamas that when they're not given the support, when their son goes away to college, the father now is John Brennan.
Yeah.
So if KJ had a son and KJ is no longer with his wife, and I married his wife, KJ's son, I'm going to protect like it's my own.
Right.
I'm not going to try to change KJ's core because that's what they instilled. But now he's here, I'm going to add some stuff to it.
Sure.
If while I'm here, KJ is now starting to override everything that the coach is saying over the internet so the fans can see it. That is not something that's going to build some type of sustainability within your son who is struggling. And all of a sudden, you got people saying this about the program, this about the program, this about the program. Corey said this on your podcast, said this to us many times when we were growing up. He was raised by his grandmother, and he tried to go home. And his grandmother said, boy, what you doing? He goes, I can't take it. I'm going home. This white man called me everything except the name of my birth certificate. She was like, did that white man give you a place to stay? He was like, yes. Is he paying for all your food? Like, yes. Did he giving you clothes? Yes. She said, boy, you better stay your butt over there. You can't come home.
Right.
I tried the same thing in my neighborhood. The OGs was like, player, you can't. You can't come. No, we invested in you. Every time you was at a Pop Warner game playing football, and afterwards, and I bought you a hot dog and a punch, because you didn't have no money or some chili Fritos or whatever it is.
Right.
I'm investing in you.
Yeah.
So I want to see you do good because I don't want you hanging out in the hood. So every time I see you at a game, I got you. I'm going to take care of you because you ain't the other guys walking around ain't doing nothing. So when you go somewhere, I'm a proud papa, relative, friend, supporter, booster, you name it, when I see you on TV. KJ on TV, yeah, that's my dog. Then I got a story to tell because I remember when KJ was, he was in 8th grade playing. I bought him all. You want to share those stories. You can't just quit and come back to the hood and do all that. They be like, wait a minute, player. No, we put a lot into you to get out of the hood. So you don't have that now. You got people when they ready to leave, they like, okay, let's talk about the coach and the program on the way out.
Yep.
Let's burn the house down. But when you burn the house down, you take smoke with you.
Yep.
Wherever they go, they gonna be the same people.
Yep.
So that stuff ain't gonna change because you go to Syracuse. Tari's the only one on that group that's gonna write his own ticket. He's the only one that can write his own ticket. He's gonna get high major. Everybody else's offers are lower than UC.
Go ahead.
And I agree with you saying with the Twitter stuff because I was telling Keith the trust, and I was talking to Chad about this the other day because he was trying to explain to me that the players feel like the trust between them and the coach is like broken. So, I'm like, well, how is that possible, Chad? I'm like, how is that possible, Chad? And he's like, well, the coach is talking behind their back. Let's just say that, okay? And I'm like, well, I mean, Chad, this guy went out and basically handpicked you. This is basketball, so this you almost like handpick who you want. And I'm like, well, he handpicked them. They got the opportunity. I say most of them played first year. That's a big blessing. That to get your feet wet, 14 minutes, 20 minutes, some games,
and
early in your career, you setting yourself up for something totally different.
Looks to have a very bright future.
At that, at a real program.
Yes.
On ESPN, CBS, whatever you get,
Right.
So I'm like, well, when I started playing, I didn't even worry about a coach. I didn't even start worried about coaches until I might have been out of school. I didn't even know it was a thing to worry about the coach. I thought it was just like, we hard work. I get myself there. We do, what I thought basketball players focused on. And now when I think trust, right, it works hand in hand because this coach also has an image as well. He has a family. And he's been trying to do this thing for his life, okay? And then when you go on Twitter, you say these things. It's been things that me and Mick didn't agree on, but we're not going to say it on Twitter.
That's right.
We're going to keep that right in-house. I might tell Troy, and he might tell Savino, but it might not go further than that, okay? And that's our family. Just like brothers talk about each other sometimes. You get on my nerves, okay? But we brothers. So, okay, if I told, Meach get on my nerves, and you told Meach that, well, we brothers.
Right.
Meach, dang, man, you told Terry that. I love you. You know what I mean? We brothers. So when I think trust, it's like, it's hand-to-hand with players and coaches, and it's weird. It's very weird, and it's almost like a dad. It's because you all over me. You all over me. I feel like you don't like me some days. I feel like you don't even love me. But in the midst of things, I know Brennan truly cares about every player. I mean, every coach does. You can't tell me. It's too tight of a family in the game of basketball. And I think as a player, you have to uphold your end of that bargain as well. And just as a spectator and of the program, I think Coach Brennan trusts his players enough to play them as freshmen. I've been around some who don't. Yeah. So I think that's misread as well from younger players. But if they could see that, man, it was a great opportunity for most of them.
Yeah, well, hold that thought because I want you to get that mic right there. And you know this too, I'll give it back to you. Let's address some of the points that were made. He tries to pit each other against each other, and he talks behind our back. Welcome to college basketball. I mean,
that's all.
Welcome to college basketball. What coach does not do that? I'm going to go behind you. I'm going to tell you something because I know you're going to go and tell him something.
We in the same community.
Yes.
I know this stuff.
I'm trying to get you to go at him. That's why I recruited you.
That's the point.
To give the competition to him to make him better. Hugs used to get mad at guys, and you know this, that never played in the game. We played Cleveland State one time. We were like 11th in the country. And we go up to Cleveland State, and it's 1-point lead at halftime. Like, before the game, we're doing, like, 3-point shootouts and playing one-on-one, and they had the music bumping, and all of a sudden, it's a halftime game, and we're up by 1, and he looks at David Evans and Marco Wright and start cursing them out. And David was like, I didn't even play. He goes, that's the damn problem. He said, Nick ain't got nobody to go up against in practice because you are horrible in practice. Yeah. Like, start cursing him out. Yeah. Because he couldn't get at Nick, so he's getting at his competition in practice. All coaches are going to do whatever it takes to create an environment. Now, when it's over, are they putting their arm around you? Yes. If you needed something, do they have you? Yes. Do you need a class or course? I got people for this. But to sit over there and try to complain on the way out and make Brandon look like a monster because, he's talking behind our back and he's trying to make us, you're trying to pit each other against it. I'm like, come on, bro. That's college basketball.
And that's when you talk, Keith, mental health. I understand the mental health of the pandemic, not being around family, maybe not feeling that support. Shoot, I felt like that with fans and with family. So I get that, okay? But it's got to be a line where, a bit of toughness. I mean, when you chose to be a D1 athlete, I hope you knew that you were choosing the light, okay? And what comes with the light come a little bit of pressure, and it comes with things that you need to learn and adapt to. And with that being said, I think that's just all successful people deal with those things, and you got to find that line. But I do understand the mental health thing for the guys, for sure.
I think what I love about John Brannon is he knows and respects the history of this program. He knows what it was, he knows where it is, and he knows that we need to get this back to that, right? And I think, like I said earlier, I can't remember if we were on the mic yet or not, but as we're talking, I'm sitting here and I'm saying he's trying to instill this UC basketball culture into these young players, and they can't handle this. That's right. So I didn't recruit the right guys. That's right. He's a great player. He's a good player. He's a serviceable player here in this role, but they're not the right players for this program.
Yeah.
And
a great point.
if there's one lesson to be had from him for Brannon, it's that, okay, first time out the gate, I didn't get the right class right. We go back around and we say, this is the guy I need. But I think one thing he does need to start doing more of is guys like you, guys like James White. They need to be around more. The guys who know the culture, who was there to build that culture, who was successful within that culture. It's one thing to have Brannon tell you. It's another thing to have you tell him. You know what I'm saying?
That's why I'll be damned if I'm gonna let some guys on the way out try to burn down what we built. That's why when I came out and I was like, I'm support of John Brannon, and I like these guys and I wish you the best. Yeah. But you ain't gonna be here. You're one and done, and you didn't even get a chance to experience what Cincinnati has to offer.
Right.
There's a reason that many of the Cincinnati players and the greats have moved back here from California, from Texas, from Cleveland, from Columbus. I mean, you name it. They come back here because if you can make it in Cincinnati, Cincinnati will take care of you. Yeah. You look at the life you built. We on Alex Meacham's podcast, player. Come on, man.
I play. My minutes combined, Terry played more than a half of a game.
This is the goat. And like you said, Keith, it's really figuring out your formula. And I know it doesn't happen right away. Even when you walk into a winning program, you're just not gonna just funnel in kids. I think it's approach, finding those diamond in the roughs. I even want to see him somewhat look into the JUCO thing. I always wonder about the connections in that world. But that I know he knows what the program's about. I like his system. I like certain things he do bring. That's why I am a fan of him. Offensively, I love it. He's with what's going on today. But you gotta find the DNA of guys who understand that they. And what Terry and them always used to tell us too with their team is you plan for more than what is on the back of the jersey.
That's right. You know what? I think this year was so tough in that normally on a Friday, and you remember this when you played, you'd see Terry, myself, and other OGs at practice. Am I right?
Literally.
And we would Terry would pull you to the side and talk. I would talk to different guys, get their phone number, text. That's how I got to know Jamal Lucas. And he and I are best friends to this day because of the mentorship that I gave to him through practice, and Hugs connected us up. None of that was going on. So imagine a Terry Nelson, a Corey Blunt, those guys being at practice talking to Atari Eason and those other guys, and now they're seeing the family structure of Cincinnati basketball. And they're like, man, I can't dip out of here. Uncle Terry's got my back.
And that's why I'm sad. I'm sad to see Tari Easton and all of them go, because honestly, they found a rhythm late.
Yeah.
And I know that energy was carrying over. Even for the fans, the energy was carrying over. You had a few new pieces, but to all the new players, what I would like to tell them, and even my high school guys, because we talk about this a lot, is the game is a little deeper than just the shooting and the scoring. Like, to me, winning comes down to just the toughness of who you are as a unit, the heart, the soul of your team. I think as we see in the tournament today, the highest seeded team doesn't necessarily win. That's just not what it is, which are the talented teams. The talented teams get the number 1, 2 spots. We all know the deal. But what we're seeing today is the tougher teams winning. Just that DNA, that formula. I'm watching Oral Roberts play. I mean, just as a unit, they just were denied that game. Right. You know what I mean? When you got some guys out there. This year I've seen a lot, and from watching from where I was at, I mean, complaining about fouls. Right. I played at Cincinnati. I mean, we would get cussed out for looking at the ref to say something. Just shut up and play. Right. Like, just play. Because at the end of the day, he didn't call it. Yeah. So why are you crying? Mm-hmm. And that was a part of what we thought our toughness was about. You know, we don't complain. We just get the job done. And I think, like you said, it starts with leadership. It starts with your coach and all that stuff. But it was just who we were. I knew Troy Copain coming in already. You know what I mean? We already kind of was gritty. You know, we knew it. AAU teams was going to fight when we played each other.
Y'all had a chip on your shoulder. Y'all thought y'all was the best defensive backcourt in college basketball.
And that's what So I think that it's also who you get. But it's finding diamonds in the rough, man. And I know recruiting can be tough. So I won't speak on that part.
Yeah, for sure.
Nothing about that.
But you guys are like taking me off the cliff. Cause like I was the guy. I ain't gonna lie. Like I was always a big supporter of John Brandon, and everybody always come on. I'm like, look, man, give my man some time. But then with all this happen, I'm like, you already get to the point where you have to. If you're being realistic, you're toeing the fence. You're like, man, what's going on? Like then you do your research. Okay, this, that, and third. And then, but just hearing you guys talk about how, you know, I've never been in that environment, not in that level, so I can't speak on that, right? But I just soak up knowledge from people that have been in that place. So that's the, you know, anybody trying to put themselves in the best knowledge, you know, part of this. I'm rambling, but you know, hearing you guys talk about it is making me like, okay, makes more sense coming from guys that have already lived it and been through it. You're like, okay, how much it makes this situation more be about, I think, just the isolation. Yeah. I think just like you said, like if you guys were there, you know, you couldn't be there because COVID and stuff like that. Yeah. But I think more people would have wanted to stay. You don't know, but I think people would have stayed in general and with the fan part. So
Go ahead. 7 years ago, when Kevin Sampson took over at Houston, KJ was putting it down on him. I mean, they were giving it to him. And he looked at that team and he said, we're not tough enough to beat UC.
I remember.
We're not. Yeah. So every offseason, if you look at their YouTube videos, they had their motto was toughest team in America. Mm-hmm. They were trying to convince them that they're going to be the toughest team in America. Lifting weights, running on the beach. Like their whole mind, they had Cincinnati as their whole mind. We was getting our gym rebuilt. They was getting their gym rebuilt. You know, we was bringing our OGs back around. They was bringing their OGs back around. Yep. And so he was like the whole time. Now, 7 years later, it's running like a well-tuned engine because he had 7 years to build the culture. Well, a couple years ago when they lost to Michigan in the tournament, he came in the press conference and said our guards aren't big enough to get their shots off against high-quality competition. So he went and started recruiting bigger guards. And now look at them. You know, you got a point guard 6'5" with a 7 feet wingspan. Mm-hmm. So when I look at John Brandon looked at the season, and he was very honest. And I asked him in the postgame after the season, where do we get better next year? And I was asking him on the coaching show, and I asked Coach G after the game. And he said, first thing we got to do is we got to get some rim protection. He said, we got to get rim protection, you know, for what we want to do. We want to play helter-skelter. We want to, you know, chase you to the rim and we want to block shots. Also, we got to get bigger and longer on the perimeter. He said, you know, we got to be able to, you know, shoot over zones, shoot over tough defense, have, you know, switch on multiple positions defensively, but also be able to post our guards and play, like, just different lineups. Because there may be, if you got a bunch of 6'7" to 6'9" perimeter players, you don't need a center. and he wants to play like that old Kentucky team. I know he talks about this is the Billy Donovan system, but the Billy Donovan system had 3 first-round picks, in that team, and they were just running through guys, and they had great play. But look at what he's doing right now. He got a 6'9" commit. He's got a couple 7-footers he's looking at. He's got a couple other 6'9" wing players that he's going after. It's like he is going to recruit not just to a system, but like you mentioned earlier, to the culture. Yeah. Because, we got some guys that are very outspoken that have had some very good success at the University of Cincinnati, and they don't want to see this thing burn down. And everybody thinks Cincinnati has fallen off. And I'm like, wait a minute. You're 10-11. You had a bunch of freshmen. He brought a group limping on a roster to a championship game. They had think about it, the last 4 years he's played for a championship. And in 6 years of coaching, 5 of those years he either won a championship, won a conference championship, or played in one. You don't hear that across the board. That ain't happening at Duke. It ain't happening at Kentucky. It ain't happening at Virginia. It ain't happening at Kansas. 5 of his 6 years as a coach, played for a championship, won a championship, conference championship, won a conference tournament title. He is a winner. So you give him 6 spots, and he realizes what he needs anyway. Thank you. I thought I was only going to have 2, but I got 6 spots to fill, maybe possibly 8. So think about this. There's about 1,700 to 1,800 spots a year to fill. There's a little over 2,000 people now in the transfer portal.
Jeez.
That's just the transfer portal. High school market, the JUCO market, the international market.
Which is huge now.
Yes. So when people are telling people, hey, man, don't come to Cincinnati because Coach Tripp and Coach this, I'm like, dog, you don't realize there's people dreaming of playing in the black and red. Like, he's going to get cream of the crop because, first of all, it's playing time. There's a TV market, and we are in a heavy basketball conference that is really, really good. So when you try to burn Cincinnati down, you don't realize, man, you putting yourself in the hole.
Yeah, those are great points. I want to, and we'll come back to you, KJ, in a second. I want to jump to you, Keith, and talk about the transfer portal. Okay. And I want to say, I know the answer, but for college basketball, is the transfer portal bad for college basketball? And do they need to make changes to how the transfer portal exists?
Man, that's a good question. I'm always going to take, I don't say always, I like taking the side of the student athlete. And what I like about the transfer portal is, okay, when I was an athlete, if I wanted to transfer, which I didn't opt out, I got hurt at Toledo. I would have never quit because, my dad would have been all over me. But in order for me to want to opt out or to transfer, I got to ask the coach, right? And then if he says no, then I got to go to the AD. And then if he says no, then there's a committee at the university that you then need to speak with. Right. And then if they say no, then you can still transfer, and you get to that other institution, they have the right to deny you any athletics aid because they didn't clear it, right? Now with the transfer portal, all he got to do is say, hey, Coach Brandon, I'm out. He is obligated. He's got two days, 48 hours to put your name in the portal. Right, right. And I'm going to burn you. We got to talk about why I didn't write the story, but we're going to get there. But I'll say this. Instead of doing that story, what I did was a story on explaining what the transfer portal is, because I think a lot of fans weren't really clear on why this is happening. The big thing with this now is usually with NCAA, if you transfer from a Division I school to Division I school, you got to sit out a year. This year is different. They get to go wherever and play immediately. That's why, at the crust of all this, is why this transfer portal is going to get crazy. Now, we talk about the changes in how players are being coddled and whatever else. If they got 1 ounce of unhappiness in them, I could just dip.
I'm out.
I could just dip. It's different this year. And in years past, it wasn't like that. That's why this year is just so crazy and why it's going to be a free-for-all. And as you were talking, I'm thinking, if I'm Brandon, I don't mean to get off topic, but if I'm Brandon and I'm thinking about this transfer portal, I'm looking at JUCO guys. I'm looking at guys, because think about when this program took a turn. It was guys like this cat.
Yeah,
these guys
Eric
that
Martins, Corey Bluntz.
Not everybody, but there were a lot of quality players. The core of this rebrand, when we talk about the culture, quote unquote, the culture was built by guys like this, the guys who had to take another route to get here, right? And I think that's what Brandon needs to look at. I think he needs to say, all right, because they're burning the house down, right? Okay, what players will come here regardless of any of that? What players need this opportunity? Because these guys obviously don't need it. They don't. At least they don't feel that way. Like I knew, like I wasn't. Without that scholarship, I wasn't going to college. Mom didn't have that money, right? You know what I'm saying? So we need to find guys that need this and can respect, like, this is a top 10 program of all time, period. It's not my opinion. That's facts. Look at the wins. Look at the banners. Look at the history. Oscar Robertson, Kenya Martin, Nick Van Exel. It's on the wall. So we need guys that respect the history of the program, and more than that, need this opportunity, and we'll look at it as that, as an opportunity.
And I agree with you totally. I'm gonna speak on the transfer portal first, because I'm always with the student athlete too, and it's funny because, like you said, it's just so much easier. So I think it's just quick to pull your trigger, like, without even wondering. But I always think about, like, man, when I was getting recruited, it was a great period of time, right? You go, you see these schools, you pick your school. I'm pretty sure these kids picked Cincinnati. You know, they got recruited, but they truly picked it. And I know going into it, you got to know who they are and what's going on. As far as the history, it's been winning now, so I know you know what's going on. So for me to sit back and yeah, it's easier to transfer, but it always brings back to me, like, to the DNA. Because when you got a DNA like Davenport, it's just like, why would I transfer? I played. If I'm sitting here talking about 6 freshmen that didn't play, I could understand. I'd be like, yeah, get him out of there. You know, he might over-recruit you.
Yeah.
But you played. Y'all played on a national level. Y'all had success. I mean, when in doubt, okay, it was a funky year. But it was a funky year for a lot of programs. Yeah. So that's no problem. Okay, when y'all got to prove yourself late in this year, you make it to the conference tournament, championship, okay? So what's the problem? What is the problem? That's always what I want to look.
And JB was a grinder. So when you saw him in the summer leagues, when you saw him when everybody's trying to punk him because he's a tall, skinny white guy playing in the Devereaux League, he's doing step backs before it was step backs. Yeah. He was bombing and coming off screens, and he was constantly running in motors. You try to play roughhouse with him, didn't matter. Like, he was going to let you have it, and he would appreciate the competition afterwards. And I like that cat, man. I got some respect for him because he was grinders. Yeah. He's looking for guys that have the same mentality as him. Right. Is he a guy that's going to coddle you and all? No, that's just not him, because he couldn't tell you the last movie he saw. He couldn't tell you, some of the famous records that are out. He is into game film and studying the process and how to make his players become the best at what they do whenever they put them in.
Yep.
Just real quick, after the Wichita State game, they eked out that victory to get to the conference final, the conference tournament final. And Mason Madsen was the only player that scored in double figures. He had 10 points that day. And after the game, he said, I can't remember the exact quote, but I'm paraphrasing, but he said, to play on this stage at a program like Cincinnati, it's a historic program. It's really a dream come true, or something to that effect. Mason, you not going to Cincinnati now. Like, the tier, you're now dropping a tier. Now, fairness to these student athletes, they have the option to withdraw, and Brandon and company could say, okay, you can come back, and we'll, maybe act like you didn't just burn down the place on your way out. But where did that go? Where did that go?
Where it change?
Because I mean, you understood the stage. Right. You understood the platform that you were blessed with, and keep that. Don't. All of this extra stuff, man, you came here for a reason. Yeah. And you looked at this as just a tremendous opportunity to be able to play as a freshman at a top-tier program. And you let all the extra stuff, your mom, your dad in your ear, your friends from the block, whatever, Brandon said this, and he said this behind my back. And, I don't want to say too much, but, like, you have to, like you said, like you guys were saying, mental toughness, blocking out the extra stuff. And I get it. It's even harder during this time, the pandemic, all of that. But, like, you go to college to grow up, to become a man. And Brandon is there to help you do just that.
Yeah.
You trusted him enough to put your signature on that dotted line, right, on that national letter of intent. He's going to walk this line through you. You got to walk with him. He can't drag you through this.
True,
this is a commitment between. I don't want to rant.
No. But he is only one man, and this is a system. I'm saying that to compliment your point. I worked at University of Cincinnati running the athletic alumni, the C Club, and I worked hand in hand with and under and for Dr. Joe Lucky, who is graduating all kind of players, post playing days, and he's in charge of SAS, Student Athletic Support Services. They have so much stuff that they're doing for athletes. We didn't have a lot of the resources that your dad had when he was running the department, and he still graduated. He got me graduated. Thank the Lord. I see him every day. I can kiss his finger like the Pope. I'm just like, 88. Happy birthday, Doc Meach. Yeah, I kiss his finger like the Pope. I'm sitting over like this, hit the pinky ring. But to know that we were a part of when they bringing in like lecturers for how to manage your money, managing your personal brand, like just all kind of stuff that they have. They bring all these athletes in, and they had these speakers come in, and they would have these games and awards and different things to reward the student athletes. He started a GoPro event, which was sort of like an open house for businesses to come in and explain what they do, and it was a job fair. They didn't have this before, so not only do we want to graduate you guys, we want to get you guys in employment as soon as you graduate, the day out the door. So he has put so much stuff into play that they haven't never experienced. So when I'm saying you're making an emotional decision based on the fact that you guys have lost, and that's it. Now, the pandemic has a lot of stuff to do with it because you can't see the forest for the trees. They're not being able to see what Cincinnati has to offer. I said, look, I keep telling people, and I put it in a quote, I put it in a text, I put it in a tweet, I put it on the radio, I put it on the podcast. They will regret their decision to leave University of Cincinnati because Cincinnati is a blessed place. You had a place where there's no professional basketball team. And you got two college basketball teams here, and one's a big brother and one's a smaller brother, even though one had more success as of late. But, there's an icon franchise here in Cincinnati that's a basketball brand, Cincinnati Bearcats basketball, that many people, like when you go to the NBA, they talk about, man, y'all got some crazy people there. Like Kobe used to say that Nick Van Exel, Ruben Patterson, and Tony Bobbitt were the craziest Bearcats he ever played with, the craziest people he ever played with. I'm like, yeah, you're right. We thought the same thing. But it was because they were like walkthroughs. They were still going hard. Everybody's trying to, like, what you doing, man? Relax. This is walkthrough. I don't know how to go. I don't know how to relax. Right. All we know. Yeah, we go on. And they were complaining that the coach was making them go too hard in walkthroughs. I'm like, boy, if KJ would have said that to Cronin.
I used to want to say that, though. I did used to want to tell him, like, hey, man, we got a game in a few hours, man. Bring it down or not. He got us 2-2-1 pressing against each other. Like, press trap, kid. It's a walkthrough. It's no walkthrough. He was real, man. It was no walkthroughs. And that's what I'm trying to tell him. But when I look back at it, it's like that was the formula to get us to win. It was that serious. You know what I mean? When you go trap kid, it was that serious. So it was like, now I'm older, it's like that the only way I think I could believe him at the time was his insanity. Mm-hmm. If he probably would have been like, Kev, man, trap. Right. I'd have been like, we're gonna trap. But when he all over you, trap now. Yeah, I don't like the way you approached me and you said it, but it's that serious.
How did you like the 5-minute pause that Cronin would have, and he would just rip y'all a new tail for not playing hard in the middle of practice?
Confused, because I used to be thinking I'm playing hard. I used to be like, what does this man want from us? But like I said, it was to get us to exceed what we were doing, because he knew it. Sometimes it's like, yo, we are good. But for us to go beat who we know we got to beat when it's time, we got to push that bar. And I think for a coach, that's the thin line. But you know your team. Because I also watch, Coach Cronin know when to do that. You know what I'm saying? Okay, my team right now, we flatline. Let me give them a break. I'm going to back off, okay? Let me see how they respond with the back off, okay? And if they respond well, we let it go. But if not, then I got to put the pressure back on. And I think I'm not sure where the balance lied with this team and coach, but I do remember sometimes, coach just walking out the gym and letting Savino and Davis just take over the practice because he was already there, but we was there. So it's like in a minute we all just gonna clash. It's gonna be 11-on-4, and I'm leaving, and LD, you can deal with them. And now you got LD coming in, yo fellas, this is what we need to do, and another approach. So that's the thin line, man.
You know what? I've got a great question, and I've really thought about this during the season. If you looked at when UC had their 25-day pause, right? Sure. They came back and played better than they did prior to the pause. That happened around the country. With other teams, they had a pause and came back and played pretty well. So my question is, with college athletics, and we're talking about basketball specific, do some of these players need more rest during the season and more smaller pauses like this to give them a mental and physical break? And as Terry can tell you, it is a grind, especially if you're going all the way to the Final Four, because I will say this, and my teammates and I have talked about this, and I don't mean to throw anybody under the bus, but one of the seasons that I played at UC, guys were so tired when we got to the NCAA tournament, I knew we were going to lose that next game. Do you know what I'm talking about, Terry? I knew we were going to lose that game. And I told my dad, I said, Dad, we are not beating Temple. Well, you're better than Temple. It doesn't matter. Guys are exhausted. So I'm thinking, should more coaches look at strategic breaks for their teams?
It might be something to look at for sure. I'm going to touch back a little bit on the portal part and kind of ask you guys a question. Do you think with the portal being as open as it's ever been, it's not going to change? Do you think coaches will have to adjust, but do you think it should be like big adjustments or it should be like small fine-tuning parts just because people have that capability to just leave per se and not really have that 1 year,
Yeah. Let me before you hit that, KJ. When the coach could leave, the players were left with the bag. And so the coach would sit over there and say, hey, you know what, it's been an awesome experience. I took the job at this next university, better my family, whatever he's going to say. Now the kid's like, okay, do I wait or do I leave now? Because they got a coach that's going to come in here. He's not going to know how to use me. He wants his own guys. And so then the players are asking, can they leave? And if they do leave, they had to miss a year, sit out a year. Now both could leave. Now it's a problem because the players can leave. Well, it's not just because the players can leave. It's just because it's the perfect storm that took place. This don't really affect Cincinnati if you got, if there was a mixture of upperclassmen and lowerclassmen. It affects them because they don't have that. And when you have a bunch of guys that are used to having something to want, they came in with their same habits from high school. There's no off season to get their bodies. And so, we Mike Rayfield used to have the guys come in and they looked like they was buff and big. And all of a sudden after 2 months, they're like chiseled. 4 months, 4 inches higher on their vertical jump. They run a little faster. They jump a little higher. It's like, man, this is some good stuff. And then not to have that, and then to come in there and everybody is sitting over there looking around like I'm going to be the man because all this playing time. I know it's going to be Keith, but after Keith, I'm getting my shots up. And no defenders. No lockdown defenders, and start the season off. Micah Adams-Woods, which was your best defender coming back, was getting backdoor cut so much. I thought he was getting sliced up, DJ sliced, like he had Band-Aids all on his back. And then all of a sudden he settled down, became the rock that we knew him to be, and they started to take off.
And back to the transfer portal question, I think it's fool's gold. I think it's only going to work for players across the country who are like Tari Eason, and a couple of these other ones that's coming from like the Ivy League schools that are already ready to go. The rest of guys like and not a knock to Mike Saunders Jr., but those plenty of those. You get what I'm saying? There's plenty of Mike Jr.'s, and it's not a knock on him at all. But talented, but it's a lot of talent.
Guard with speed.
Okay, but Atari Eason, who can do the things that he can do, somebody would love to bring him out. And I'm going to another high major. Guys could go to Radford or somewhere like that right away, and I think they'll be very successful too. But I think it's fool's gold for from what they came from. And I always like to ask players, like I tweeted, what are you chasing? Because we all wanted to leave. Every year, all players go through, I'm transferring. I'm out of here. Every year I said it. And it's just like, what am I chasing though? am I going to play at a bigger program? Well, at this point, we only going to go to Michigan State or Duke or Kentucky at the time. So if it's not going to play it for one of those, I mean, what am I chasing? I'm going to the tournament. I'm at a winning program. I mean, we fly charter. I mean, we get gear. What else are you chasing? You know what I mean? So if it's coming down to, oh man, the coach get on my nerves. Well, that's just immaturity.
And how many coaches we can all rattle off lists of coaches in our athletic careers from pee-wee to high school to college that we didn't like. That's right. I could name a bunch of coaches, man. I hated dude. I couldn't stand that man. But you know what? I respected him. I listened. I trusted that what he was telling me was going to make me better out there. Because if it wasn't, I don't think he'd have this job. And it's the relationship needs to be there. Like go ahead. But I did want to address your question about the pause. But when you said one thing, let's say in a normal year, pauses F up the money, right? Like if we're pausing, we got TV contracts. That's less games. That's less people walking through the turnstiles.
I meant more from a standpoint of, as a coach, looking at a complete season and finding those strategic pauses there of maybe not, missing games, but times that you can get your kids to, take some time. Yeah, a week off. What that would do for your body.
I think it's fair. And then Chris Vogt even, because he still has a nagging shoulder injury that hurt him last year, and he talked about it because he actually played well after the pause. He was one of the guys I think was a direct beneficiary of that time off. I said this the other day to somebody. I wish we wouldn't throw him a parade every time he had 8 points and six rebounds, because we need more. He should get 10 and 8 in his sleep at 7'1", 260. But again, I want to pass Chris Vogt. But no, your point is valid, and I think it is something that maybe this year is maybe a lot of coaches are going to look at this thing differently in several different aspects. It just forces them to. You got to take a step back and okay, what worked in 2019 didn't work in 2020. What's going to work in 2021? And we don't know what 2021 is going to look like. It may be open up. We have no idea. But I think it is valid to think, all right, for the mental health, for the physical health of these players, let's see if we can strategically find some holes in the schedule. But I think, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how this thing shakes up.
I do think as a coach, you find that balance on your team, because I think it's such a long season. If you played, your team's going to hit a wall at some point. Like it always happens. It tends to happen late in your season before your conference tournament, or sometimes in the conference tournament. But you hit this wall, whatever your team is. And normally it's just fatigue, mentally, physically. And, I don't think we stopped practicing, but it was mandatory cold tubs. Like these were things that had to happen for our success. Like, sure, okay, we're gonna go an hour, but y'all gonna rest and really do things for the body for an hour. Yeah, and then we would do things. And I know pandemic made things a lot harder, but we would do team bonding things that was for our mental health together. Me and such and such here might be beefing on the court a little bit because I feel like he's not passing the ball, but we would take those times to, hey, let's go to Benihana's, put them in a group setting, let them just free.
Team bonding.
Just have some fun.
You talk about it.
You talk about that. You joke about it.
Yeah.
People make jokes, and they could.
And
that wasn't an option.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying to you. It's tough.
And my question to you two is, I do think that they benefited from the pause physically and mentally, but I also think my perspective was, when you lose something, because they couldn't have it for 24, 25 days. They couldn't get on the court. They physically couldn't play the game that granted them this opportunity. So I think one of the reasons why they played so well after the pause is there was that hunger and that grit and that fire and that culture that should have been there from the very beginning. I felt was there after the pause, because whatever light needed to switch on, that pause just kind of brought it out. Right. So I think we saw that hunger, that appreciation of what's in front of you, that opportunity that's in front of you, when it was just there, and you may have been taking advantage of it. As soon as it was taken from you, you were like, "Yo, we might have another 30-day pause. Yeah. We got to ball out, because today is all we got. Yeah. Today is all we got." And you kind of sense that sense of urgency with that team after that pause. I mean, there's no dancing around it that they were a better team after that 25-day stretch.
And I think that you always, as a coach, you always have to evaluate. When you see something that may work, you have to look at it and say, there's something to this pause. And I always said this. Terry, you agree with me or disagree with me? I think the best thing that ever happened to Bob Huggins is Eric Martin. I'm going to tell you why. When Eric Martin became Hugs' assistant, he said, Hugs, you got to change this and that up for the sake of the players. Am I right, Terry? That's and when I believe Coach Huggins changed up how he did things, I think it helped how he coached players, how players responded. Terry, do you agree with that?
Yeah, because now Eric has become the bulldog for Huggins. Huggins used to be the lead dog. Cursing everybody out, getting mad, doing all the episodes, trying to create the hostile environment and practice. I call it the Jack McNichol experience. All coaches, all good coaches, will light that fire under your butt, and either you're going to jump or you're going to burn. And so he's going to either make you bring the best out of you, or you're going to sit, and he's going to use you as an example the entire time on the bench while the other guy's playing well. He's going to be talking about you or whatever, doing that. So, but it's one of those things where when you look at Bob Huggins and a Mick Cronin, they had the defense was different, but it was common. The only thing that made it common was toughness. Mick understood being around here what Cincinnati basketball was. He was an assistant coach there. He knew what it was. Then he, Patino, he knows what it was there, and so he picked up from some of the best. And when he came here, he made sure, as a head coach, that we're going to make Cincinnati proud. I don't care. The year they went 11-17, this first year, some of the hardest playing Cincinnati guys, patchwork, man. They worked their tail off. They just didn't have the weapons. It took them 4 years, but every year he was getting better and better and better. And then it got to the point where they don't get KJ unless they was having that success.
Yeah. And I think that's so when fans kind of jump off the bandwagon, it's like, hold on. We've been here before. Like, we've recovered, and actually we've recovered stronger every time, right? Coach Yates, rest in peace, tremendous human being, great recruiter, didn't have the success from a win standpoint, right? When Hugs came in, he built everything, right? So we've seen that model. Mick Cronin came in with Ronald Allen, Seg McGowan, Brandon Miller were the only three guys he had, and he had to bring in all these guys. Deontay Vaughn was the backbone, John Williamson, and then eventually he got to Yancey Gates, which then led to Lance Stevens. It led to that whole crew. Yeah, but we've seen it. We've seen it kind of hit a low, get rebuilt, and we're back there. In
like Bitcoin. It's going to dip, but then it's going to go back. The value was there because Cincinnati basketball is a no commodity.
KJ just gave you the mic. I'm going to let you take this one.
Yeah. I invest in Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is like, it's sexy, it's beautiful. But then you look at it, you bought $200 worth of Bitcoin, you look the next day and it's 156. You be like, I made the wrong, and then the next thing you look at it, it's 300. And and it's like, it's trending. Cincinnati is not GameStop.
Yeah. So, and here's the thing, and this is a recommendation that I would like to make to Coach Brandon, and I want to get your guys' feedback and thoughts on this. I think moving forward, one great thing I think he could do is get some of the OGs together and form maybe just a committee of OGs that he sits down and talks with. Like I said, Terry is Cincinnati Bearcat basketball. I don't care what anybody. He is Cincinnati Bearcat basketball. Corey Blunt is such an important piece to our program. You take, you put those OGs around, and you sit down and have some open dialogue. Get those guys, behind you. Thoughts on that?
Funny you say that because I talked with Lisa, Brandon, and I said, hey, the guys, we would like to get together and come over and talk with Coach John Brandon and meet with them as a form of support. But we got some issues we want to talk about. And she says, yes, sir. Like, absolutely, let's do it. I talked to my husband. He's like, yes. They want the guys around.
Yeah.
And I want John to be the way he is. I want him laser focused on getting talent and trying to make, John is about championships, and he wants to win championships. He's not going to do anything. He's not cursing these guys out. He's not calling them out of their name. He is totally opposite from Cronin and Huggins from that perspective.
Yes.
Will he light a fire on you? Absolutely. But it's just his different way. He's just not that. He may sound a little quirky when he says, God darn it. He may say it a certain way, but he ain't gonna. You ain't gonna go to the next drill until he tell you to get this thing done.
Yeah.
And he's gonna get on the line, gonna run. And then once you run the first time, he ain't gonna curse you out for 5 minutes. He gonna say, okay, get back to it. Let's go. We got stuff to do.
Right.
So he wants you to do that.
Right. And here's the other thing. I think it is time, whether it's this coming year, the year after, we need a former player on staff. We need a former player who's been a part of the program, understands the culture that's on the staff. It's been, I'm not sure how long it's been. I know Jaquan Parker was with Coach Cronin.
During my time.
Right.
We had Park and DeMar Johnson came
DeMar was there for a little bit.
well. And I think that's good for players because I remember watching Park even as a kid and then to have him as a coach. Just that guy that's in between. Just somebody that you notice in the office. So he know what's going on, but he also can play the brother part. Hey, man, this is just what he always – this is what he want from you.
Yeah.
I'm being honest. He mad. You haven't been getting steals. You had a couple turnovers. Yeah, he mad. He upset. Yeah, he upset. Yeah, he upset. So, don't turn it over. Get a couple steals. You'll play. And I think that is what the program's missing. I think a lot of fans want to see that too. It's such a great history with Cincinnati basketball. I'm from here. I've been watching it as a kid. I mean, I enjoy the program's history. And to be a part of it. And then now, I talk to Kenny Satterfield. These are people that I would be like, oh, man, Kenny Satterfield.
Yep.
That now it's like that's part of family, over something that we both attended. So I think that's a lot of us would enjoy that. And I think it'll be good for the city, too, to also help with recruiting. I think we got guys here that are very capable of staying home, playing for a great program as well. I think that's the bond that's kind of missing. I'm from the city, and a lot of guys feel like we don't get that opportunity out of here.
Glad you said this.
So I think that'll bring some excitement too. I think when we talk DNA, Davenport, you got to funnel a guy or two every year. At least be out here recruiting them. And I think you'll see some success with Brendan there too.
And I don't want to attack former staffs and all that, but if you look at the talent that's come out of this area, the greater Cincinnati area for basketball and what they're doing now. Shout out Maceo Teague right now for what he's doing at Baylor. You talk about, Walnut, there you go. You talk about a kid that, his team has a chance to win the national championship, and a lot of times spotlight is on him.
Yeah.
Right? One of the best guards in all of the transfer portal last year was Carly Jones.
Yeah.
Aiken.
Come on now.
This kid come out of Aiken. I told Cronin and the staff, I said, he's going to be one of the best guards. I was told he was too small.
Told the same thing.
And I'm like, I'm not going to say what I said.
But we ended up with Justin Jennifer, but we're going to talk about that because that's my brother. And I love that guy.
You know what I'm saying? But
that's a guy that out the city that I totally agree that I just don't know how they were missed. And for whatever reason that may be.
Jackson Hayes.
Yeah, I just don't know how we missed some of these guys who I know, I've spoken to, and would have loved to come here out of high school. And now they older asking me, how I was recruited and why I was recruited, and, you look back like, dude, I don't know. I was just playing basketball. But, just to know that they weren't, I always wanted to know as a player, like, why don't we attack more guys
Fredericks.
from our city?
CJ Fredericks. CJ, I met him. So we're down there. We're playing in the Chicago Legends Classic. And so Corey was getting nominated. He was getting honored. It was obviously in Chicago. Corey played there. He get drafted there. So we're there. We're sitting there having some drinks in the lobby, and CJ and his dad walks over, and he goes, "My God, this UC players. And then so his dad was like, hey, man, can my son get over here? I knew his dad, He's like, come on, my son get a picture with you guys? And he's sitting over there, he's looking at us, and his eyes are starstruck. And I'm like, man, you look good in the black and red. He goes, that's my favorite school. I wanted to play there. They never recruited me.
Yeah, he did.
They never recruited him.
Never said that.
Oh, my goodness.
He also said the same
yes.
thing.
I mean, he
said the same thing.
Yes.
All the time. He always say, my
this guy would have
Yeah.
been one of the best knockdown shooters of all time.
You hear me?
And didn't get recruited.
He would have had a follow on like no other. Like, we literally talked about this literally on the pod. And remember the kid for Virginia that was from Indiana, Guy?
Yep.
Yeah, Kyle Guy.
He was, he's a
From here. Yep.
he if he would have got off from UC, he would have dropped everything.
I know his aunt. Yep. 100%.
Like, he was like
Yep.
from a little kid, like Bearcats, no offer, cold shooter. You know what I mean? Just like,
And
look
look at what.
Now,
Go ahead.
let me
Go ahead.
piggyback off this. And Kyle Guy turned into a really good player. And no disrespect, but I'm not sure if Cronin recruited white guys. It's a question mark there. I'm just being honest. I don't know, man.
Bob at least snuck in one every now and then, like,
long guys, man.
Bobby Brandon, Ryan Fletcher, Keith Greger. Like, he found that one that was a grimy to catch.
So
able to take the coaching that he gave. So
right. I think that was the other thing, but watching some of these guys we talk about now, man, I feel like they would fit in any year. They would have fit, man. But I do think that relationship, even across the water in Kentucky, could even be a lot closer with high major talent.
But and I know it's apples and oranges, but look at what Luke Fickell's doing, right? And again, I know it's different, but that's what he's directly doing that. You're not leaving here. There is no way you're leaving here. If you got skills, you playing for us. Ain't no way I'm letting you go down to Tuscaloosa or whoever. And
here's the thing. But what Luke Fickell's doing that, in my opinion, is genius is the staff that he has.
Gino,
right? The
best quarterback ever. And statistically.
We talked about it in the podcast. That's your guy.
Mm-hmm.
His staff has the ability to go out and recruit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's back to my point. You put a guy like James White on staff, and you tell James,
"What up, James?
Go out and go out and recruit." Shout out Flight. You
Yep.
recruit the greater Cincinnati area.
Mm-hmm.
He walks into the gym.
come on.
Stop it, man. Stop it. Right? It's automatic. And that has to be a strategic move at some point.
I always love when we talk about Flight because he's the perfect example of the DNA. Because he didn't start here, right? He wasn't a UC guy at all. He was at Florida. He was a McDonald's All-American. He get to Cincinnati, instantly fit, right? He's that grimy guy that's going to lock down, that's going to play hard, that's not going to, he did what he needed to do to fit in. He appreciated the opportunity. He didn't look at it as, man, Cincinnati, like, I was at Florida. I'm the McDonald's. This was a prime opportunity for him. That's the guys that we need. The guys that get that. They put this uniform on.
Right.
Oh, my gosh, bro.
Right.
You know who else wore this?
Right. But you got to look at the fact they need to talk to Ronald Allen. Ronald Allen was, the leftover guy that in the Huggins era came from Hurricane Katrina, came out of Xavier, New Orleans. But it was just a couple years ago, he went through the college coaching academy. And so they teach you how to edit film and do all the stuff that he was doing. And he was going to take an assistant job at Jackson State. And because his friend had got the job, but he was constantly calling coaches and he was calling me once, every 2-3 days. Hey, T, let me run something by you. And it can be as little as 10 minutes for a question or 2 hours. You talking about stuff, but that's how Ronald is. He is now the assistant coach for Utah Jazz in their G League. He knew that grind, and I would be talking to him. He was like, "Let me put you on Zoom real quick. Does it look good?" Like he's using Zoom to edit his game film. I got to edit this film for him. I got to do this project. But he did everything. He didn't expect just because I played for UC, I'm supposed to get a job somewhere. Because as soon as Mick got to UCLA, all these guys were like, "Hey man, I'm gonna get if I can get a job with Mick, I'm gonna get a job with Mick." And Mick was like, I need guys that are established, that already know how to be an assistant coach. I ain't got time on this wagon to be getting nobody in. I got to have somebody that knows what they're doing. So Flight White, whoever wants to be a college coach on this level, just because you played here, that's not going to get you the job. We are high major. Yes, you probably go over to get talent. That's one thing. But to be able to, them guys on the road, you've been on this. because it's all about the players after you win and all that stuff, and everybody's celebrating. You got a big thing of food on the bus. You grab your food, you sit down. Y'all in the back with your headphones on, checking IG, doing all your other stuff. And what are the coaches doing? Coach got their thing open.
Yep.
Coach got their thing open. They editing game film for this one, and they working on game film for the next one. They don't get a chance to celebrate. So it ain't as beautiful as people like can make it out to see. Like, yeah, you ain't a celebrity when you're an assistant coach.
No.
When you're an assistant coach, you're a grinder. It ain't anything about you. Your job is to make sure the players have what they need to be successful.
I remember when I got two stories real quick. I remember when I was on the AAU programs and I'm on the AAU circuit. I remember when Brad Stevens was getting cups of coffee for other coaches. I am not kidding you. The college coaches would be lined up on the baseline, and Brad Stevens was handing out coffee. And I'm like, this is crazy. You have to grind. Quick story. I'm in Los Angeles, California. I take my nephew who graduated from Gainesville High School. He wanted to go on a trip, and I said, for graduation, I'll take you on a trip. We go to L.A., and we go to Manhattan Beach. So I didn't have a change of clothes, so I had on these like flower shorts that were just bad look. So anyway, my buddy calls me up, and he's like, yo, I got an extra ticket to the Drew League Championship. And I'm like, word? He's like, yeah, you got to come right now. And I'm like, man, I got these flower shorts on. And he was like, yeah, it's in Compton. So, and so I'm like, you know what? I'm tough. I'll be there. So my nephew and I roll up, and the cars are like loaded, like everybody's in. We're in the hood. Mm-hmm. And my nephew's like, you think you're good with those shorts on? I was like, I'll be all right. So we walk in. It is packed. DJ's playing stuff. Place is going crazy. There goes warming up a Swaggy P. He's talking trash to everybody. And my nephew's like, man, this is crazy. And I'm like, yeah. I was like, it feels good for me to be in a basketball gym where I don't know anybody. I'm all the way in Los Angeles. Man, I turn to my left, and this dude looks at me, and he's like, Meacham? And I'm like, Ronald Allen? And he daps me up. He's like, bro, where were you with those shorts? I was like, Rod, man, look. I was like, look, man.
Funniest Carolina.
You know how funny he is. He was like, I was like, man, I was in Manhattan Beach. He was like, hey, man, say no more, man. It's all good. I have not seen that dude since his last game at UC, and we literally run into each other in LA in the Drew League 2 years ago. And we took a picture. I'll have to show you guys later in these shorts. But Ronald, like you said, I'm going to tell you the story. Everybody in the Drew League came over and dapped up Ronald. He introduced me to Swaggy. Everybody knew Ronald. I mean, he legend in that area. So I totally agree with you.
Yeah, but going into it, like you said, Terry, it is a lot of work on the coaching side, and I think a lot of former players got to figure that business side of it out. But I do think our next step is to get a former player as a coach, but even get more guys like, I always wonder, and now my coach that I played for in there, so I know how you can feel that detachment from the school at that point. But the Kenyon Martins and Jason Maxiels, I know Steve Logan still come around, but I'm used to seeing him a little bit more. Some of those guys too to even come and bid more into the program. Yeah. But I do know that take a lot more work and a lot of network there. But that this program would be dope if that could happen.
Well, I think it's up to us to reinstate the men's basketball alumni again, and make it an independent group from the university, and just get everybody back involved, and then make them involved in the lives of the youth. Raise some money for scholarships. Have some events where our guys are coming back around and let them know, because when I was the C Club president, I used to get all kind of flack that I would throw the best stuff for men's basketball. It would be nothing for track and all that. I'm like, no, I'm throwing stuff for track. I had ambassadors for track, and then football wanted to do their own thing, so they start having their own functions. But the whole thing was to get resources into every particular sport that was on campus, to gather their alumni, have some functions for them, tailgate at this area, we're going to have a party at this area. But athletes, when you put it down here for University of Cincinnati, you're going to tell that for the rest of your life.
Right.
It's part of your legacy. So
Right.
that should be celebrated every year. And the new people that come in should know about you, not from some business card from the advertising, but to come around and say, oh, yeah, that guy, this was the guy that was the all-time leading scorer? This guy was all-time? Yeah, just a normal guy. I'm here supporting you. You can be the next guy. But look, I got a beautiful family. I got a wife. I'm working at this company. This is, I drive this. These are connections. And like Ronald Allen, I go places and you're constantly introducing me to people. You're constantly bringing people into the Bearcat world. And these people that probably never play on this level. But you deal with a lot of athletes, and every time I see you at a game, you're like, Terry, this is one of my players for so-and-so, and he's like, oh my God, can I take a picture? He's taking a picture. He's so afraid to touch me. He's afraid to touch me, but he's sitting over there, and he's like taking the picture, and he's staring, and Meacham doing all this talking, and then they walk away, and they're like, I got this picture. But it's one of those things where when you make an impact on people, is use your celebrity, use your platform to help people, because we still got, this is the mindset that we got to get from basketball players. I'm not talking about any other sport. Basketball players are the prima donnas of sports. The prima donnas. Because if I shoot a basketball right now, 8 managers are running to try to get the rebound and pass it back to me. When your season, your career's over, the ball bounces, you got to go get your own stuff. You got to fend for yourself. Most basketball players have never held a job by the time they graduate college. Basketball is year-round. They've never held a job. So are you teachable to go into your next phase of the career, or is it something where I got to get into, personal training? I got to do something that I know what I'm good at. Okay, that's good. But are you going to get trained now? Or are you just going to use everything you just did as a former player? Are you going to get certified? Or are you going to make it a business model? Or are you just going to have a couple people that you get a couple of dollars here and there and find your girl to leech off of the rest of your life? Like, let's be real. Like, we got to have guys that want to take the next step. And to be a coach, there's levels to it. Yes, you played on this level. And you got some famous and success. And I look at guys like my man Melvin Levitt, who should have owned the city by now. But he's got to get away from trying to be like Huggins and be Melvin. Melvin was one of the funniest cats around. He was, highlight film and all this stuff. But he's got to be Melvin. He's got to be accessible. He's got to be on time. He's got to, when people want you to be somewhere, you got to be where you're supposed to be. I mean, come on. That's just, and I'm not getting on Melvin. I'm using him as an example. Right. But he is one of our most notable celebrities. He's
hands down. I can ask any of my friends, right, in just history, outside of Kenya Martin, outside of Kenya Martin, they always ask me, man, I'm like, who's the most exciting player? The helicopter.
No question.
All the time.
No question.
I mean, my dad friends, my friends, the helicopter.
Yep.
And it's so funny because it's like, they always ask me, you bumping, you ever see him? And I'm like, I don't. But I actually just saw him a couple weeks ago. It was crazy, but it was good seeing him. But he should be more accessible because, that's when I caught him.
I told my mom, I was like, Corey Blunt was at the game. It was good to see him. Melvin was there. Melvin Levitt was at the game?
Yeah, I'm trying to.
60-year-old mom was like, Melvin Levitt was at the game? She couldn't believe it.
My dad loves Melvin Levitt. So, but those are the type of people, like you say, man, you got to be accessible and understand, how big their role are to a person like me.
Yeah. So, sure. I've got another question, and I want to start with JT and Keith. I'm going to hold the former players for a second. Okay. Should college basketball players be paid?
Man, right now.
Yes or no, JT?
Okay, pay them.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, pay them.
Okay. Why?
All right. So the thing is, where I get torn at is, Big Ten, SEC, they bring so much money. But if you're in the A10, it's not as much. So it's almost got to be like a scale, like if they're going to do it like a scale, or they got to allow them to be able to generate their own money while they're in school in general. So like when Ohio State got in trouble for all right, you got these sweet jerseys, I sold them to Keith because Keith's my guy. I sold it to him for $150. Why should I get in trouble because I'm just selling merchandise that I'm getting for free because My mom doesn't have any money. My mom doesn't have any money. My dad doesn't have any money to send me. I'm eating on ramen noodles, even though I play for Ohio State. I mean, they got them on weight training, of course, or certain things. But you can't go earn your own dollar. Whereas, like when I was in school, I could work at the library. I could go work at wherever. And I could at least make ends meet. Like if I want to go kick it on the weekend, I got my own money. I ain't got to call my mom. I ain't got to call my daddy. Where they, if that, financial aid check run out, you SOL. Whereas I think they have to get some kind of pay scale in general because, they make so much money off of the kids at the end of the day, and then some people, like, Kevin Johnson, right? You played 4 years, when you were at UC, you probably had the most earning power as far as, you're going to tournaments and stuff like that, where once you graduate, you still have that power, but it's not the same where you're an active player, so you don't get to cash in the same way as, when it's over. Like, just think of UD when they made that run to the Elite Eight. Those kids could have cashed in and got a lot of stuff at that time, whereas now it's like, okay, where are you on that team? Like, then people are Googling and searching, where in the moment people kind of can, maybe if it's a small amount from, Nike or whoever, they can get the direct benefit. And the school can still get a benefit of it too. Like if it's coming from major, programs or, major companies, like, say P&G is like, all right, we're going to really sponsor UC. We want to give Jeremiah Davenport a whatever contract, but then UC gets kind of a brokering deal, like something where it could kind of be like a win-win for everybody. But
the Bearcat Basketball Podcast is presented by the Healthcare Management Group. And Keith, my question for you, I want to take more off of the players being paid. Let's say you've got a student, and this is actually a real example, full scholarship to go to CCM, okay? Music student, made an album, was performing and being paid to perform at Bogart's. Still full scholarship in CCM. Is there really a difference?
No. I would, my answer to the no is the answer to that question. The previous question, no, they shouldn't get paid, but they should be able to use their likeness to do whatever the hell they want. So if Terry Nelson wants to hold his own camp and charge whatever the hell he wants, he has that right. If he wants to hold his autograph sessions twice a week at the Dick's in Kenwood, he can do that. Like, however he can parlay his platform to put more money in his pocket, to put more money in his family back home, to give him some shoes, that's dope, to help mom pay the rent back home, whatever he needs to do to parlay that platform. I don't think it needs to be, because the difficult part is, when we start talking about paying athletes, is, Desmond Ritter is worth a lot more than the star swimmer, right? So we got to figure out where that balance lies. But she has a platform as well. So let her go to the local YMCAs and do swimming lessons or whatever. Let them use their likenesses and their platforms to generate income from themselves. We don't have to worry about the NCAA getting involved or the money coming from the institution. Nah, I have a platform that I created for my hard work, the work that I put in. While Brandon is yelling at me, I'm enduring all of this to try to put wins on the board. That's the platform that I created from my hard work. I'm going to use that to then go out and generate an income for me. And I think that's the best way that we can, the most fair way to do it.
And I like that. And here's one thing I want to point out too. I hear a lot of fans who say, no, the players shouldn't be able to do that, or the players shouldn't be able to be paid. But my thing is, everybody's making money off the athletes, but the athletes. And I told that to a guy I know who's a fan, and he goes, that's not true. I'm not making money off the athlete. I said, wait. Didn't you tell me you bet on the Bearcats and won $1,000 one time gambling? And he goes, yeah, you made money off of Jeremiah Davenport hitting a three-pointer.
That's right.
Right?
That's right. So in real estate, we got the same thing that's going on. So there's two different things about getting paid. There's revenue share, and then there's profit sharing. And I left the company to go to a real estate company because they give you revenue share, and it's different. And profit sharing, if you were going to pay an athlete and you say we're going to pay you based on the profits, that means that after all the money is in and they paid out all the bills and the loan that they got to give back to the foundation, and they paid all the coaches and they paid all the staff and they paid all that, if it's $100,000 left every year in that budget, then you're going to get a piece of that $100,000. You don't get the whole pie. You're going to get a piece of it. That's profit sharing. Revenue sharing is, I don't care what you put in, I'm getting 10% of everything that comes in. So if we go out and we raise from donors $25 million a year, so a piece of that revenue comes into our pot. If we get shoe company money, that piece of that revenue goes into that pot. If we get ticket sales, if we get whatever it is that generates revenue, I get a piece of every bit of revenue that goes in there. Those are two different models. So if you're not going to give any of those models, a kid a choice of any of those models, then it comes down to likeness and image.
Right.
So what can I do? Well, there's all kind of network marketing. There's all kind of different things you can do. One of the easiest things was going to a car lot and saying, hey, we got several former Bearcats that are actually, selling cars right now. You can go over there, do an autograph signing and test drive this car, autograph signing, and win a chance to get some Bearcat tickets or whatever. You pay him $500, $1,500, whatever it is, to come out, sign for a couple hours, bam, money in his pocket.
I think it's great.
It ain't coming out of no donors' pockets. The reason that they don't want it to happen on university levels is because it's going to cut off with it's going to hamper the giving. Because if they know, if I got a group of guys right now that are in a group that donate money to University of Cincinnati, and if they had the option to give it to a player, for that player to graduate and to help them situation out while they're coming back to finish their degree, they'd give the money to that player. But they want to also fund the scholarship. They want to make sure that the money is going towards the next group of Bearcats, that they're able to come in and have a situation. It's no easy task, but it's if you got revenue share, it's good. If you got profit sharing, that's one thing. But if you got likeness and image, the universities and the presidents are starting to think, how are we going to get this done? Because for so long, we followed one model. And then in the storm, 2020 hit, and LeBron met with the governor of California and started some stuff he's like, I agree with you. Young, progressive dude. He was like, yeah, I got you, LeBron. I'm going to sign this into act. And then all of a sudden, the NCAA says, whoa, wait a minute. Now the Blue Bloods, who have been paying people under the table all along for forever, it's like, you just don't go to Duke because Krzyzewski got to that point because he's, somebody's, I ain't going to put nobody's name out there, but I'm just saying, all I'm saying is people have been busted by giving less to people. I mean, look at the whole, on record, Illinois back in the 87 when they had Marcus Liberty and Kenny Battle and Kendall Gill and all those guys. And they was paying guys hundreds of thousands of dollars to attend the university. Michigan, the Fab Five, we got awarded national runner-up after the fact that Chris Webber received almost $250,000 from a booster who later died the day before he was supposed to actually go to court to talk about extortion and all this other stuff that was going on. He passed away, and Chris Webber didn't have any relationship with Michigan since when Juwan Howard and Jalen Rose said, well, yeah, we got money. We got boosters that were helping us out. You're talking about kids from Detroit, kids from the hood. Yeah. So if they want to take us out, take us to get something to eat and put a little something in our pocket to hold us over, the big homies have always been taking care of us. Like, why should you come in your comfort and tell us, no, we can't have nothing, but you ain't giving us nothing? So I understand that.
Nah, I'm just piggybacking off what Terry said. I like that. If it's not either profit or revenue sharing, at a likeness. I think just letting a person be. You use the time, use the opportunity, because that's what you're really working at. Everybody, and this is what bothers me, because I know the NCAA knows this. Everybody is not going on to play at the professional level. We at that point, we all know it's normally if one or two guys, you can see it. Okay, and I'm talking of the big sports. I'm just talking basketball and football, baseball. But all these other sports, no one is probably going to go pro, or Olympics would be something. But outside of that, there's job force next. So while you do have the opportunity, I don't understand. You already do hour ground signings. Okay, so if we already got it set up, okay, who is that for? You know what I mean? That should be something paid. Okay, we talking about mental health, time to rest. That's time. Okay, that's time that you could genuinely just have mental health time and hanging out, but you're there playing with kids, helping with camps. You know, all that stuff I do think should be some kind of pot split between the players and being paid, because that is time, and I think at that level, you giving your time to the next guy is very important.
I spoke at about 30 schools when I was a player.
No, I'm not.
I'm just saying. So if you go to if we're here at Deer Park High School. So if Deer Park, I'm a player right now. If Deer Park wanted me to come in and do a school assembly, and the principal wanted to interview me, or the athletic director, or the coach,
Cut a check.
talk about whatever. Yeah, I'm gonna cut you a check. We only got 500. We only got 1,000. Hello.
Hey.
That's all the college kid want.
The crazy thing, like with my perspective, okay, so I started college as an athlete and I ended college as a journalist. Mm-hmm. My life was vastly different and my freedoms were vastly different. So as an athlete, I can't go off campus and utilize my talents to get more money. Yeah. As a journalist, I can go off campus, get a paid internship with the Cincinnati Reds or WCPO that's building my network and putting me in a better position post-college, which is the whole point of college.
Yes.
The whole point of this
what I was trying to get
is to build these teenagers into good young men and to prepare them for whatever. Because 99.9% of y'all ain't going to the league.
Yeah,
Sorry.
100%.
So we need to do what we can do to prepare them for what's next, and giving them opportunities to get off campus, use themselves to create a better network, to build, to prepare, to create opportunities for what's next. Like, stop stifling these kids. Let them build.
You know, but I will say shout out to University of Cincinnati for having my backs. You know,
sir.
T-Nail, you know, Dr. Lucky, everybody, Andre. You know, I appreciate y'all guys too.
Yeah, free education is great. But I would say this about the free education piece, and this is where I kind of fight people on. They say, oh, well, these student athletes go to college and they get a free education. Well, not all these players are there long enough to receive their degree, right? Yeah. They may be there like Dermar is there. Dermar and I had a conversation, and when he came back to Cincinnati, he goes, I don't know anybody because I was only here 6.5, 7 months. Yeah. I was in and I was out. So if you look at that one, okay, he's gone, and you look at other guys that leave, if there's a gap between the time you leave and come back, that scholarship isn't always going to be there to get your degree. So that free education you're talking about really isn't there.
It's not free. So you get an education. You come there in exchange for your talent, time, and ability.
Well,
you get an education.
Yes.
Free means that you sign a letter of intent and you didn't come to practice, you didn't come to the games, you didn't do nothing. You just signed a letter of intent and you went to class and never came into the gym. That's a free education. Yeah. No, when I'm over there and I'm in practice and I'm getting chewed out and I'm running suicides and I'm lifting and I'm out there doing off-campus work and I'm in the community and I realize that all eyes are on me and I have to be a certain way because everybody's going to be looking at me and you know, I have a responsibility to the brand that's on the front of mine and then the name that I represent that catapulted me here.
Right.
So it's not free. It's there's an image that you are portraying or you are upholding, but there's also like you represent so much more than yourself. When you go to a university, you represent KJ, you represent Kenyon, you represent Alex, you represent everybody that's ever put on a basketball jersey and a football jersey and a tennis jersey. And you know, you represent a fraternity of people because millions of people across the world never get a chance to play college sports, more or less on this level. And when you get out, when you become an alumni, I know this from running the C Club, like they're kids, they never get a chance to see them play. And so when they come back, when they have to take them to look at the walls and see all the murals and look at the photos and they're in black and white or they're in color or whatever, and they have to hear stories of how good their parents were.
Yeah.
It's like it's just totally different. Like you got to respect that.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, Terry, real quick, I want to give you a shout out. My producer Stu Holt back here.
DJ
Stu on the 1 and 2. We're very, very close to releasing the audiobook Walk of a Lifetime. So my book that came out back in 2000.
Simon
we recorded.
Anderson.
Yeah, Simon Anderson,
God
my
bless his
publisher.
heart. Yes.
One of the great human beings to ever come through the University of Cincinnati. And when I was putting together the audio book, it was important that I got some different voices on there. I'm the voice 90% of the time, but Terry Nelson lended his voice on the book to he read the parts of my basketball mentor, who was Jerome Gray,
Jay
aka
Fresh.
Jay Fresh. And Jay Fresh passed away. He had a heart attack. What was he? Was he 40?
He was, well, at the time, let me see. So, what, how long was this? 6 years ago?
Man, I can't even.
So at the
Gosh,
time,
I
he
can't
probably
remember
was
how long ago it
44,
was.
43,
Yeah, he was
42, yeah, 42, 43. Yeah.
He had a heart attack. He had, well, the thing is, he had some heart issues, and he had medicine, and apparently he didn't take his medicine that day, and he was taking groceries out of the car, and then they found him by the car. But Jay Fresh started out at Miami Oxford. He originally was from Toledo, went to Miami under Joby Wright, and then transferred into UC and played with Terry, and then he stopped playing basketball because he was in DAP and he really wanted to get into fashion. And my mom worked in DAP, and so I got to know him, and he became my basketball mentor. And without Jay Fresh, I do not make the Bearcat basketball team. There's no way. So I thought it was important that I had the voice of Jay Fresh on here, and it had to be Terry. So
Yeah, and I had to. I got the pleasure of giving a toast at his wedding. And so Jay Fresh used to come late to practice all the time, because he had work.
I could do the walk too.
Yeah. He'd come in, he'd be pigeon-toed and crooked lips and all that stuff. He'd come in there a little late, and he'd try to run on the sideline to get loose, so he can get on the second team, and he'd shoot around. And all. One time he was shooting around, and he went and dunked and broke the rim, and he was like, "Hey, I think I'm in trouble." I was like, "What?" I just broke the rim. We was like, "What? You broke the rim?" We chest bumping. I'm like,
Right.
"Dog, you broke the rim." And he was like, "Okay, is that cool? Is that cool?" I'm like, "Man, they got a ton of these rims." But during the wedding, he's sitting. I gave a toast, and I'm sitting over there, and I'm giving the toast, and I'm talking about how Jay Fresh used to come to practice late because he had responsibilities with the DAP program, and he wanted to be a fashion designer and all that. Then I said, "Now look at him right now." I said, right now he's in a wedding and he's wearing his own clothing line. He created his own tuxedo. He made his own tuxedo for his wedding. And everybody was like, "Oh, I see the tie." And I'm like, yeah, not only was an athlete, now imagine if he was an athlete who was actually selling coaches' suits. Custom making suits and all this stuff, and a coach can pay you $1,000 a suit instead of paying $3,000 for some Armani and all this stuff. He was what you wanted an athlete to be. He was very respectable, came when he was supposed to come, but also had responsibilities because he had a vision past basketball.
Yeah, Jay Fresh was the man. Yeah, rest in peace for sure. He was. I'll tell a quick story. He was so important to me. I'll never forget this. It's a 2-part story. So,
it's a 5-part podcast. What are you talking about?
This is gonna be a long podcast. Hey, I don't care. This is good content. This is by far the best podcast I've ever done. Like, by far. But so Jay Fresh and he was helping prepare me to walk on. I hadn't made it as a walk on. He was helping prepare me. So he says, "Hey, come to my apartment. I'm gonna get some wings, and I got an idea for you." So we sit down, and he goes, "In order to play for the Bearcats, you need that dog in you." He's like, "So I want you to watch somebody." And I'm like, "All right." He's like, "I want you to watch Allen Iverson." And I'm like, "Really?" And AI's at Georgetown, and I'm like, okay, like, I'm kind of hip to AI, but I'm not like really super into him. He's like, "You're going to study every move." So I started recording every Georgetown game. I'm watching every Allen Iverson. I had his crossover move like down to a T. I even have a notebook in which I draw out how he steps every time. So I go back to Jay Fresh. I go, "I got it figured out." He's like, "What'd you figure out?" I said, "His crossover." I was like, "It's all about his footwork." I was like, "The arms and all that, that's just whipped cream. That's just that's an illusion." And he goes, so I pop in with the tape and I'm watching. So I'll tell the rest of that part of the story. But then we're watching Georgetown's playing UMass, and they had Marcus Camby and this guy named Edgar Padilla. Yeah, it was best UMass. So they have a guy named Edgar Padilla. And I don't know if you remember that game, but AI dunks on Camby. Well, Edgar Padilla and I kind of favored each other at the time. So we're watching it. Jay Fresh is like, and he's real cool. He's like, man, you kind of look like Edgar Padilla. And I was like, dang. I was like, you're really going to laugh at this. I hope you guys know who this is. I was like, who did they tell you look like? He's like, Montel Jordan. I was like, this is how we do it? He was like, Montel Jordan.
He had the high top fade.
Did he not look like Montel Jordan?
He was our team barber, and it took him an hour and a half to cut hair, man. He's like, he'd start clipping, then he'd take a little step back, and he'd look to the side, he adjusting the light, then he'd like do a couple more, then he'd stop telling a story. I'm like, dog.
Hey, man.
All you had to do was give him a 40 ounce. Give him a 40 ounce, and he'd be sipping it, and it'd take an hour and a half to drink the 40. By the time he finished, he'd be like, tell me how that look, yo. Hold on, sit right down one more time.
Where was he from?
Hey, Jay Fresh, he's from Toledo originally. So I'm in LA, another LA story. I'm in LA, and I run into Jim Jackson, that played Ohio State in the league. I run into him at the Fox studio in LA. Jim doesn't know me from anybody. I stopped him. I'm like, hey, man. I was like, my mentor was Jerome Gray. And he was like, what? Man, I talked to Jim Jackson for about 35 minutes on how much respect he had for Jay Fresh and his family, man. He was just such a good dude. Last part of my story, I worked on all those Allen Iverson moves. All right, and I'm going to cuss on this. My first week at UC, playing in practice, trying to get to the lane. Hugs blows. He don't have a whistle, but he kind of stops play. He goes, hold on. And he comes over to me, and he just starts pointing at three-point line. He says, you see this line right here? I was like, yeah. He said, don't ever fucking go inside that line ever again. And I was like, what? I was like, Coach, I'm not a three-point shooter. Well, you better learn to be. So I called Jay Fresh. I said, Jay Fresh, man, I tried to cross somebody over, and Hugs told me don't go inside the lane. He's like, yeah, well, my bad. He's like, that's true.
He had you watching the right player, though.
Yeah, he had me watching the right guy.
Just the right situation.
Yeah. Hugs did not want me inside that. But, RIP Jay Fresh. And thank you again for being the voice. That means a lot to me. Quick question. I know the fans are going to love this part, but – and don't mean to exclude any of your teams, but who would win?
Oh, boy.
The 1992 Bearcat team or the 2000 Bearcat team? That was going around on Twitter.
It was going around on Twitter.
That's Kenyon,
Pete Michael.
Dermar.
So I heard this because they're going back and forth. And he was like, dude, we had 5. He said, we had 5 NBA draft picks. Mm-hmm. And so the reason that Flight White was saying, we will get y'all because we had 5 NBA draft picks.
It was Dermar that was
saying that. We had 5 first-round draft picks. And I'm like, and yet y'all still lost in the first round of the playoffs. So it wasn't the amount of it wasn't the amount of NBA draft picks we had. We had 2, then Herb and Eric went overseas. Buford went overseas. He would have been an NBA player to make Boston's roster if he didn't break his wrist. But it was about the talent that you have and the roles that they master and how they bring their talent together for the sake of winning.
Sure.
When you had that team, Kenny Satterfield was doing his thing. Kenny used to get mad because he was out there killing ants, just dribbling, doing that New York stuff. And Pete Michael wanted to be the man, and DeMar wanted to be the man. It was like one ball and all that talent. I mean, that team was loaded. You had who else you had?
There was
Stokes on the bench.
Stokes was there. D. Little.
Logan. Yes.
D. Little was there.
He wasn't Logan yet, but he was.
Yes.
Yeah, Logan was there.
So talent-wise,
balling.
oh my goodness. I mean, it wasn't like they went undefeated. So
Right.
they still had to work out their stuff. So in retrospect, you always look back and look at all that talent. But when it came to the court stuff, a lot of times they got it done. A lot of times they didn't. It was a different time of college basketball.
Very different.
So pitting Bearcat teams against Bearcat. No, give me the 2000 UC team versus the 96 Xavier team that had, West and all them guys or whatever. Those kind of teams, like match those up. Don't match up UC legends with other UC legends because it's different eras. You're talking about
good.
We took So in perspective, we come back from the Elite Eight, Final Four and Elite Eight, 92 and 93. JUCO players, transfer players. The next year, he had 2 All-Americans, Marco Wright, D'Antonio Winfield. They had David Evans, who was the Chicago Player of the Year. Mm-hmm. They had all this talent. David Flint, McDonald's All-American.
Flint. Darnell Burton.
Come in. Darnell Burton.
Darnell came in.
So all this talent had come in.
Mm-hmm.
And they did not win as much because Huggins was trying to do the stuff that he did with us.
Mm-hmm.
And he could ride us as hard as he could ride us because we couldn't transfer. We were JUCO kids and we had no more transfers in us. Them guys, he's trying to yell at D'Antonio. D'Antonio's yelling back. And they almost went to blows several times.
Yeah,
man, don't be talking to me like that, player. You know, his high voice. And them going at it, he could not coach them the same way because All-American guys wanted the offense ran through them. And they could not get the offense. My bad, D'Antonio.
I'm telling them too.
Hey man, don't be. Hey man, player. D'Antonio, we should sit at prime time, and D'Antonio would sit up at prime time and watch the dance floor, and he'd be sitting over there, and he'd be so like insecure, like, hey man, what Hug be talking about, man? Hey, why you get mad at me for practice, man? I be out there going hard. Hey, just give me the ball, man. Hey, it might not be go. I'm saving all my energy for practice, man. I'm trying to go out. I said you can't save your energy at UC. Like, you get energy by giving energy. But yeah, he crazy, man. Hey, he was gonna hit me for real, player. He was hit me. I said, yeah, he was probably going to.
I'm going to tell you what, T. I need to thank you again because you hooked up my interview with D'Antonio Wingfield, and it was one of the best player interviews that I did. He's really in a great space right now as a person. Great dude, man. And he's reached out to me on several occasions just to say hello and stuff like that. And I never got a chance to know him because he was in and out, and I hadn't played yet.
Him either.
Yeah, great. He was really, really, really a great interview. This is great. This is like I said, and I truly mean this. This is my favorite podcast that I've done this far because I think we covered a lot and a lot of great people here. So.
We athletes, man. We passed our food a lot, man. You gotta have some food and drinks in here next time, man.
Hey,
Gosh,
I gave you. Well, I do.
Every
the drinks.
hour and a half, 2 hours, athlete gotta eat.
Trying to say we need to pay to pay to get. Is it?
Ooh, I didn't even know that.
All right. Hey, I thank you. It's been great. If we could do this real quick, I want to go around just and tell people exactly how to get your content, how to get a hold of you, anything you want to tell them that you're doing.
KeithJenkins.com is probably the best way to find all of my work. I'm on Twitter most often, Instagram a little bit, Facebook, Mr. Keith Jenkins. And then Cincinnati.com is what pays the bill. So shout out to the Enquirer. Shout out to them for not forcing me to put out a anonymously sourced story tearing down the program. Because that's not what I do. I got standards and ethics and morals and but seriously, like I'm very happy to be back in my hometown covering a legendary program that you guys built, and it's just been a pleasure to be here, and I'm looking forward to many more seasons and years to come.
TNL33 on IG, Twitter, just about every platform, LinkedIn. Buy and sell with tnail.com for real estate. I do real estate. I'm a realtor with EXP, so it's agent owned. So if you're thinking about getting into real estate, you want to come join our team, come join me. We got plenty of room for you. If you're thinking about buying and selling, you got to go with a Bearcat. There's no other man that you should go with. If you need a car, we'll find you another Bearcat to get a car from. But if you're going to buy a house, you buy and sell with T-Nail.
There you go.
I love it. I like that little slogan, buy and sell with T-Nail. Better go buy and sell. But Kevin Johnson here, and IG is Bev_IM, and then Twitter name is Capo_IM, and just keep a lookout. Continue to do color analyst, and hopefully be catching me on some other podcasts.
Thank you, man. JT Smith. You can find me a little bit everywhere. So, Tino, I'm piggyback off you, man. I'm not realtor, but I'm a mortgage loan officer for U.S. Bank. So,
Come on.
you know, refis and purchases, I'm going to give you some cards, man. I can help your people out. And all y'all, if I got refis and purchases, let me know. And then, you know, with this Bearcat stuff, you know, hit up the frontofficenews.com. You're going to see all my work there. I'm all over the place. I'm going to be long-winded. You get Front Office News on IG, Front Office News on Twitter, and if you want me personally, _JT_Smith. And that sucks because I'm a Smith, because that's why I got all this underscore. So, but yeah, hit me up, man. I appreciate everybody's love and, you know, sharing posts and commenting. You know, I just did this, just started the site just off of love and covering sports in general.
Yeah, well, I appreciate all you guys and appreciate you being on this season, and hopefully we can get you on many more this coming season. So I appreciate all the fans there for listening to the Bearcat Basketball Podcast presented by the Healthcare Management Group. I want to thank everyone for listening to Season 2 of the Bearcat Basketball Podcast. Once again, you can follow me on social media. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Alex_Meacham. Meacham spelled Meacham. I'm also on Facebook and LinkedIn, Alex Meacham. I'm on Snapchat, BigMeach41. And I'm now dancing on TikTok at AlexMeacham41. I appreciate everyone listening to the Bearcat Basketball Podcast. Go Bearcats!